Okay. Amongst the people who were there, the Patriotic Alliance's Ashley Sauls and Millicent Matoba, together with the ACDP's Steve Swart, and then the PA's deputy leader, Kenny Kunene. Now, what we've done, we were hoping to get some further responses from ACDP as well as other parties like the DA too. The DA made the point that in fact they have no comment because their representatives went on in their personal capacity, not on behalf of the DA. But it can never be personal if you're an MP, because you always represent your party, don't you? Can you ever separate the two, right? But anyway, Kenny Kunene then spoke to Sakina Kamwendo on the the news show around lunchtime, and we thought let's replay that conversation, and then we'll get your thoughts upon what he said and she said, and we'll pick it up after that.
Sakina, they went on a fact-finding mission in terms of what is happening at this point in Israel and Palestine. You would have seen that they met the president of Israel, Herzog, His Excellency. So that is the purpose. That was the purpose of the trip for a fact-finding mission. What are the plans of ceasefire? Where is Israel at in terms of ending the war and so on? So that is the reason why they went to Israel.
So when you say it was a fact-finding mission, is this something that yourself and the other parties from Parliament had engaged on together? Were you invited? Who paid for the trip? And whose suggestion was it to go on this fact-finding mission?
Sakina, I don't know who paid for the trip, but when we spoke to the members of Parliament, they've indicated that everything was above board. They returned this morning, and we will be having a brief from them on the trip and the arrangements on the trip.
As the party deputy president of the Patriotic Alliance, though, would it be fair to say that the Patriotic Alliance did not pay for this trip?
I will have to ask the TG about that, Sakina, and I'll give you an answer. I was actually with the TG now as we were meeting the ANC negotiating team. But had we had this interview before, I would have asked her. I did not ask because we will be getting a full report from our members who were allowed by the party to go to Israel. So there's no contradiction on their trip. We are happy that they went to Israel. It is the party's position that we need to continuously engage Israel and understand what is happening in that particular country and area.
And obviously this speaks to the processes within the Patriotic Alliance in terms of, as you say, it is in line with the party position. But then to that point, would it be of concern to the PA if someone else had paid for this trip outside of the Patriotic Alliance itself or the South African government?
Why would it be a concern, Sakina?
I'm asking the question.
If people, and I'm answering Sakina, if someone is willing to pay for a trip for politicians from the Patriotic Alliance to go to a particular country on an understanding, on a fact-finding mission, we don't have a problem with that. I don't think it will be anything irregular. Transparency is what we believe in. So we don't have a problem if the trip was not paid for by us. But as I'm saying, let us get the facts from the report that we'll get, and then we will then be able to say to our members that this is what happened, this is the report, this is what they did in Israel, and this is what they have brought to the party in terms of their fact-finding mission. But also to say the costs were borne out of whoever.
So what, again, I'm asking a question that I've asked previously, but just to the specifics of this fact-finding mission. What is it that the Patriotic Alliance still wishes to understand with regard to what is happening in Israel and Palestine?
We need to understand the facts, not what WhatsApp groups are saying, Sakina, not what is in the media. Because the media is biased at some point, especially reporting on Israel. There are those that favor Palestine. There are those that favors Israel. So we went there on a delegation led by the president of the PA and myself on the fact-finding mission. But a fact-finding mission does not happen once because circumstances change, Sakina. So that is why they went. We want to understand. We were there in 2023, July. We want to understand now, almost 2 years later, what is happening. Where is the war? Is Israel looking at a ceasefire? What are the challenges? But talking to the people themselves, right there in Israel, not rumor, not media reports.
So to push that particular assertion to its natural conclusion, if you are being hosted by the Israeli government and you say you want the facts objectively, how are you then establishing the facts on the Palestinian end of this whole saga?
When we were there, we met with Palestinians, Sakina. We got where the Palestinians are. And that is why we understand what is happening at that particular area.
Which
you must
Palestinians?
remember that.
Which Palestinians, though? Because you were very clear on the Israeli side. They met with the Israeli Israeli president. So, on the Palestinian side, who did your MPs meet with?
I don't know. I will get a report. Who did they meet with? As I said, the president, I know that they met the president of Israel because a picture was there. So let's wait for the report, get the report, and then we'll be able to then respond to that particular question.
And just a final...
Sakina, okay. I wanted to add, because you mentioned Brett from Good, the Secretary of Good. Because he brought this thing as if it was a secret trip. Sakina, there was nothing secret about the trip. Our members have no obligation to inform Brett where they go. By the way, since Brett has not been a member of Parliament, he has been bought, sitting at home, looking at Facebook. He saw this on Facebook, posted by our member who was in Israel. So if what you see on Facebook is a discovery, then Brett must be living in another world. So there was nothing secret. That is why one of the members, Ashley Sauls, went on Facebook and said, I'm in Israel on a fact-finding mission. So Brett take a Facebook post and go and write a press statement as if he has discovered something that was hidden. Nothing was hidden. Our people were posting. That's where he saw it.
And that's fair in response to what Mr. Heron raised yesterday, to give us your perspective on that. But I just have a final question, Mr. Kunene. In terms of the Patriotic Alliance's alignment with national foreign policy, and as a party that is part of the government of national unity, and knowing the South African government's stance and the steps that it has taken to distance itself from Israel, including, recalling its ambassador, supporting motions to suspend diplomatic relations due to alleged human rights violations. How then, as part of the GNU, does the Patriotic Alliance justify its leader's visit to Israel?
Number one, Sakina, that is the policy of a ANC government. And we are in a coalition with our positions very clear as different political parties. And the ANC has accepted that These are the different positions of political parties, but we also have a national mandate and obligation that we need to fulfill of serving our people. Just because we are in a coalition doesn't mean we must abandon our position on Israel or our manifesto. We disagreed with the ANC on the renaming of Sandton Drive to Leila Khalid. We are still in coalition at local government and the GNU. We disagree with the ANC on the question of the death penalty. We disagree with the ANC on a number of issues.
Okay, that is the voice of Kenny Kuneni representing, well, from the ACDP, but speaking about the fact that 9 MPs, elected MPs, were in Israel, part of what they call a fact-finding mission to Israel. He's very unclear who actually sponsored the trip. Even in the questions to him, he said the group arrived back today. He'll now find out about it. It's a bit vague in terms of that part of it. What do you make of it? I understand there's been opposition to that. There's certainly been opposition from the African National Congress perspective, who've been critical of that, and we will try and not try, we will get a perspective from their side as well. But what about yourself? So we know it's a political hotbed, and we know as I talk to you, there are people who have very, very different views on it. The one view is like, absolutely, Israel, what they've done in effectively taking over Palestine from the time of the Balfour Declaration, completely unacceptable, cannot be allowed. The Palestinians need their country back, right? And then the more current one, the issue of the attack of October 7th, and then the reprisals of what has been a genocidal intent. And then the other point of view to say, of course, we must go to Israel. We need to get the facts for ourselves because there's so much distortion in the world. So what do you make of that and the principle of South African MPs, elected officials of our country, who actually went on a fact-finding mission to Israel? Let's get your thoughts. This is the National Pulse.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit cfi.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
TS Galaxy Queens have a special game plan to display a stellar performance to collect maximum points in their own backyard. However, Royal AM want to demonstrate their royalty with a win away from home. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Don't miss out on TS Galaxy Queens versus Royal AM Ladies the Saturday 12th April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hey Mzansi, autumn may be here, but we're extending the sunshine on our Blue Sky offers at Ford. Get a new Everest XLT from only 942,000 Rand, or just 9,999 per month when financed through Ford Credit, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. 10% deposit, primeless 5%, 40% residual. And remember, every Blue Sky offer comes standard with our Ford Family Promise. That's just 9,999 at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, right, let's get your thoughts. We should be crossing to Zimbabwe now with Eddie Cross, who's a Zim independent economist, about developments in Zimbabwe. And this is so important, you need to hear this out. With government authorities now have begun the process of compensating white farmers who were negatively affected by the country's land reform program between 2000 and 2001, right? So you could be from Zimbabwe yourself. I'm sure you have an opinion on that one. But also comment on that fact-finding trip and whether you think the principle of a fact-finding trip is okay, keeping in mind other countries, even South Africa's government has been on fact-finding trips at different times to, say, countries like the Ukraine. So any thoughts on that? 086 000 2032. And then to call to WhatsApp 0614 104 107. Let's see if we can pick out some of the quick comments from you right away. Let me just see if we can play one of the WhatsApps. We've got that right now.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Sorry, I've sent the message earlier on thinking it's still Sakina. I think we respect the PAs for supporting their Israel. But they mustn't lie to us and say they met the Palestinians. We respect them. They went to meet the killers there, Benjamin Netanyahu and his administration. They mustn't lie that they met Palestinians. They went to meet the killers there. They can do whatever they want. He mustn't come to the radio and lie. And we know their position with regard to Israel. Thank you, Maroon.
Okay, so that's your thoughts. He mustn't lie. I must say, when of
Hi,
course,
Ashraf.
all right, when Sakina spoke to him about, who were the Palestinians they met, it was very, very vague about that. So, I mean, clearly he was speaking on behalf of his party representatives. He did make the point that they arrived today, so he hasn't had a full briefing session, but it was rather vague. But again, the principle for you of a fact-finding mission to a country that you either agree with politically or you disagree with politically, either way, or the fact-finding mission with a country that you feel is just completely offside, and South Africa as a government has taken a leadership position on that. What do you think of that principle of them going in the first place as well? Let's see if we can play some more of these of your thoughts, which we'll do right now.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, the issue of Israel taking another country, it's in the Bible. That's why it will never be solved, because they have an ally in the heavens. And that's one of the reasons I stopped believing in this whole religious thing. But I'm going to be anonymous because my mom is a very church-going person. I don't want to be in trouble tonight. But this is God's fault. Each and every one of those people who die in the Israel conflict, it's on God. That blood is on God.
Hi, Ashraf. Since the Patriotic Alliance is a partner to the ANC in the government of national unity, now the question is this not a red line for the ANC? Is this not against the principles that the ANC stands for? Therefore, I would suggest that maybe a comment from the ANC is required in this matter. Otherwise, if the ANC doesn't do anything about this, its credibility in fighting for the people of Palestine will be called into question. Mongezi Kutsendani.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, the issue of Israel taking another country, it's in the Bible. That's why it will never be solved, because they have an...
Okay, sorry, we played that one already. Well, there you are. I mean, I hear that one about the Bible, you see, and one can debate it, and many people sort of quote biblical sources for that. But as one has said, the blood is on God's hand. Can you really say that, seriously speaking? On the other hand, I mean, whatever, the Bible or other religious texts may say, there's a reality. Even that's open to interpretation, as you are well aware of. But there's also a reality of the time, right, that we have to deal with right now. And what do you make of the reality of the time? I think the point that is brought up earlier about the Patriotic Alliance as part of the GNU, can the ANC hold them to account? In fact, the ANC has issued a statement, and we will actually talk to them, by the way, the ANC, I think around just after 5 o'clock today, right? So let's hear what they have to say. Let's check up. I'm going to check with Keys if we've got some more comments, because certainly we...
And if you do...
Yeah, let's do that and sort that out. We had slight gremlins. My apologies for that. I think we're good to go.
Peace and greetings to all the fellow listeners and to our lovely host. War are for the people that support it, and if you do support it, may it come upon you rather than the people getting blown up.
Afternoon, Ashraf. It's Yandisa Pongo in Tembisa. I think Kenny Kunene, they will visit Donald Trump soon so that they can tell him that they are fully supporting him on what he's doing in South Africa. If they are fully supporting the Israel, I think even Donald Trump, they are fully supporting him. When are they going to America now?
Are you suggesting that they must now go to America because they appear to be supporting the same groups of people? I wonder, do you see the world like that, divided into different groups, and you judge an issue by the people that support that issue? Because sometimes we don't know everything, do we? but you say, okay, who's backing it and who's anti that? And that can be a range of issues. Of course, this one here, very topical around the issue of Israel. Let's see if we can play another quick voice note before we get to the news headlines.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. This is Ricky Body from Pochin, Kurungman. You know what? We are going to find ourselves in the middle of war because of these untrustworthy politicians, especially those that are in this GNU nonsense. But one day, we are going to see and find ourselves in the middle of the war that we don't know who created it. Let's wait and see. They are liars.
Who are the liars? You were not very clear when you say they are liars. I don't know, but I'm assuming, but let me not assume. Right, so we should be chatting about Zimbabwe, and hopefully we can do that anyway just now. But feel free to give your comments. You can also post on our Twitter feed. Just use the hashtag #TheNationalPulse. Right, 3:30. Here's the news headlines.
Thank you, Ashraf, on the news headlines on SAFM. I am Ondilambana, and a very good afternoon. Cooperative Governance Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa says a full report regarding the continued use of poisonous organophosphate by some spaza shop operators and farmers will soon be sent to Parliament to declare the substance illegal. Analysts have warned that the current rand weakness could cancel out potential fuel price cuts in May. According to unaudited mid-month fuel price data from the Central Energy Fund, both grades of petrol could decrease by between 9 and 13.5 cents. And the European Union's foreign policy chief has accused Russia of stepping up its war against Ukraine despite U.S. efforts to broker a peace deal. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Okay.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, Chumi, what are you going to talk about today?
Well, I'll be focusing on the Nedbank Cup. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Marumo Gallants are welcoming the underdog tag. This is ahead of their clash against Orlando Pirates in the Nedbank Cup semi-final this weekend. Bahlabane Bandwa are the only team in the last four from outside Gauteng, with Mamelodi Sundowns and Kaizer Chiefs fighting for the other place in the final. Now, Gallants are one of the only teams to have beaten Pirates in the league so far this season and may fancy themselves against the Buccaneers yet again. Meanwhile, Pirates coach Jose Rivero says that the 2-0 loss to the Bloemfontein-based side in the league is all in the past as he targets his cup final number 6 in South Africa.
Nothing. It's a new story on Sunday. It's a knockout game. It's a game of consequences. It's only 2 possible results. The other games that we play are games with 3 possible results. So it affects the way that one team or the other will approach the game. This is a different story. It's the possibility to go to a final. So yeah, it requires a different way to look at the game from both teams. And we have a decent experience already in this type of competitions together. And again, we're gonna try to recover as good as possible in a short space of time, to prepare the game as good as we can and do our best in order to be in another final, whatever it takes.
Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs coach Nasruddin Nabi insists that the team feels no pressure as they prepare for this weekend's Nedbank Cup semi-final against Mamelodi Sundowns. It's the one chance that Chiefs have at winning silverware for the first time in 10 years.
You said for me there is pressure. If we lose this game, I can answer for you there is no pressure. Each game we play, there is pressure inside, but for me, I'm coming here like I said before, and I repeat it for a process. The first years, if for the process, we are here to build our team. But when we try to build our team, when we get opportunity like this opportunity, we are in the semi-final and we can win trophy, we'll play it and we try to play. If we will win this trophy, because it's for the fans, for the board, it's one not dream, but we play to win always the trophy because we are in a big team, Kaiser Chiefs. So every season and every competition you play, you have to win this competition.
Right, kick-off for this game, Kaizer Chiefs Sundowns is on Sunday at 6 p.m. Meanwhile, the Pirates and Gallants one is on Sunday at 3 p.m. Elsewhere, Mohamed Salah ended months of speculation over his future by signing a new 2-year contract with the Premier League leaders Liverpool today. The 32-year-old has scored 243 goals in 394 appearances for the Reds since joining from Roma in 2017. In rugby, a huge opportunity is on the offer for the Bulls in Edinburgh tomorrow, as Jake White's Chargers aim for a maiden semi-final spot in the EPCR Challenge Cup. As the last South African team in the European showpiece, all eyes will be on the Pretoria outfit to continue flying the SA flag and keep the trophy in SA after the Sharks made history when they won the title last season. Now the quarterfinal gets underway at 1:30 tomorrow. In the meantime, number 8, Jasper Visser's recovery from neck surgery could rule the Springbok star out of the start of the World Champions 2025 test calendar year. According to reports, Visser's Japanese League One outfit, D-Rocks, has announced that the 29-year-old will be out for the rest of the season. Then moving on to athletics, 2-time Olympic champion Shelly-Ann Price will retire after the 2025 track season. Fraser Price last raced in the 100-meter heats at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, and surprisingly, she withdrew from the semi-finals after a controversial occurrence at the stadium with the officials before the race. In tennis, defending champion Stefanos Tsitsipas defeated Nuno Borges in the round of 16 of the Monte Carlo Masters. Now, Borges served 6 times in the match to complete a 6-1 and 6-1 win in 67 minutes. Tsitsipas is aiming to capture his 4th title in Monte Carlo and become the second most successful player in the tournament history, behind 11-time champion Rafael Nadal. Then finally, in boxing, the WBO has received a petition to allow the Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois undisputed World Heavyweight Championship fight to go ahead. Unbeaten Ukrainian, Usyk remains the unified WBO, WBA and WBC heavyweight world champion, and he's due to make a mandatory defense of the WBO belt against New Zealand's Sir Joseph Parker. But a title unification can take precedence over a mandatory contest, and the WBO has confirmed that a petition to allow Usyk to box IBF titles Dubois first has been launched with its champion committee. And just before I say goodbye, Ashraf, today, back in history, 24 years ago exactly, we lost 43 lives, and that was during the Ellis Park disaster. And I'm just thinking back at that, and I was like, I was just under 14 at the time. But I do remember being completely shaken by the visuals on TV. My dad is a big football fan.
Okay.
So then we were definitely watching the match. And then when the disaster unfolded, my word, it was just horrific.
It was terrible. I mean, so
where were you?
You're right.
Do you remember
so
the emotions?
I can't remember where I was, but I mean, I wasn't working, so I was probably at home. But I think I then heard very quickly there was a problem, right? And, you know, Tabiso Tema, who worked with us here, he was commentating at that game, and perhaps even Michael Abramson too, I think, were commentating at that game. But Tabiso definitely so, or Tabiso's on the pitch side. And, I mean, it was just a horrific story, you know, similar to what I think it was called the Heysel disaster, where you see so many Liverpool fans or Juventus fans dying, and like you think it can't happen, but it happened. And the sense of utter helplessness and why should it happen in the first place in our country. And I think since then things have changed with regard to regulations.
Absolutely.
So I think it's horrific. But if I can just add my 1 minute piece or 1 cent to it, that is why, is what I told you the other day. I think that was done by massive overcrowding,
Stampede,
where you know where people would double sold tickets and things like that, counterfeit tickets. But that is why the control is so critical in the stands and on the pitch, especially for like signature games like that. And that is why when we've seen those last 2-3 games with South African teams playing in the continental games, whatever the fights on the field of play is for the referee to decide on, right? But to then have supporters on the field, right, and seemingly where the security can't do much about it, is another recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
Because you see, your player, you may not support that player. You see that player kicking one of your players. What stops a fan going on and assaulting and killing that player? It's not right, but it's about control. But to go back to the Ellisburg disaster, a real shame on the South African sporting book.
Listen, one life lost is a lot. 43 is a tragedy. We continue to remember the lost lives. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The Bavarians want to display quality play to emphasize why they are called FC Hollywood. But BVB is courageous to cement a decent spot in the top half.
It's all or nothing. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be.
Catch one of the world's greatest football derbies.
The Klassiker.
FC Bayern München versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 12 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Begin with Buco, and you can hit the road with a brand new trailer. We're giving away 94 trailers nationwide, fully loaded with home building and maintenance supplies to fuel your next project, road trip, or business venture. Spend 1,000 Rand or more in store at Buco. Fill in your entry form and drop it in our competition box. It could be you. Shop, enter, and win with Buco. T's and C's online.
Buco.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a crash before the R24 airport interchange. The N1 northbound in Pretoria has a crash before the R21 highway. In Bedfordview, the N3 northbound slow moving on the ramp to the N12 east at Gilulis interchange, and the R24 westbound has delays approaching Marcia Street. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary truck at Cliffdale, and the N3 eastbound is slow moving at Marion Hill Toll Plaza. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound has a stationary truck on the link to the M5 South. All lanes are open. The N1 outbound has a stationary truck on the off-ramp to Monte Vista Boulevard. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, and the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get to that very important Zimbabwean story we touched on earlier on, and then we'll try and get some calls if we can squeeze them in just now, right? So Eddie Cross is with us. He's a Zimbabwean independent economist. Eddie, appreciate your time, firstly. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Okay, pleasure.
Thank you. Now, we're talking to you at a time because we understand that the Zimbabwean government has now started the process of compensating white farmers who were impacted by the country's land reforms for a one-year period, 2000-2001, right? Firstly, give us the context to that. What happened? What happened at that time? Then we'll talk about the level of compensation.
All right. It's not very complicated, really. Back in 2000, the government, the ruling party of Zimbabwe at that time, was challenged by a new opposition party, the Movement for Democratic Change. And in the election in 2000, the ruling party was almost defeated in an election for the first time since independence in 1980. And one of the swing issues in that election was the fact that the farmers and their labor, about 600,000 voters altogether, voted for the opposition. And the government led by Mr. Mugabe at the time decided that this voting bloc had to be dealt with. And so they launched what they called the Fast-Track Land Reform Program, claiming that they were recovering land which had been acquired back in the 18th or 19th century when the white settlers had arrived here. and they did so without compensation. 4,800 farmers were affected, most of them white. There were a few black farmers affected by this operation, and about 8 million hectares of land. And this injustice, and it really was an injustice because it violated the Constitution, it violated property rights, remained unrecognized and unaddressed until the new government came into play in 2018, when the president made a commitment at his inauguration that he would take steps to compensate these farmers for the losses they incurred during this program. This led to negotiations over about 2 years, and eventually, I'm not sure exactly when it happened, I think 21 or 22, the government signed a deal with representatives of the former farmers, where they agreed to pay them $3.5 billion in compensation for their losses. This proved to be an impossible target for the Zimbabwe government, which was under sanctions and did not have access to international funding or any form of aid. So what they did was they defaulted on the first agreement. The farmers went back in and renegotiated the deal, and it is that renegotiated deal which is now being implemented by the government.
I see.
And
Okay.
in fact, two weeks ago, the first 378 farmers received their compensation.
All right. So to just get a clear perspective here, you're saying that the initial period of these farms being confiscated, right? That's not been challenged now in terms of it being unconstitutional, as you claim, and therefore the president or the prime minister realized that there was a need then to compensate them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he recognized it was an injustice, and also it violated property rights. And I think the international community put some pressure on him. But it is largely at the initiative of the president of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, that this exercise has been undertaken and is now being implemented.
Okay, tell me more about the monies that are being compensated. I mean, give us a perspective of that. How much and what's that worth, really?
Right. Well, there's 4,800 individual farm owners, probably about 10,000 title deeds, because many of these farmers held more than one title deed. And the total value of the compensation is $3.5 billion. And the interest rate originally calculated on this was 1% per annum. It's now 2% per annum and payable over 10 years. So the 378 farmers who were the first tranche to be compensated 2 weeks ago received 2%, they're receiving 1% interest every 6 months in cash, in US dollars, payable anywhere in the world. And they, at the same time, they received treasury bills to the value of $300 million, which was the bulk of their compensation. And the first of those treasury bills becomes due and payable on the 31st of January 2026.
Okay. How is this being received in terms of, communities, the recipients and the broader Zimbabwean community?
Well, the recipients, obviously, many of these families have been absolutely destitute since their properties were taken away from them, because that was most of them, this was their sole means of living. And some of them have done extremely well in other spheres of activity, but many of them have had to live on savings and family and all other things. And frankly, I know of a number of people who've been absolutely destitute. This government did provide some intermediary relief for those individuals in the form of payments, intermediate payments, while the whole process was taking place. But this really was negligible. So the response of the families that I have spoken to has been quite emotional, actually, because they now have quite a reasonable sum of money in hard currency, which they can use at their own discretion. On top of that, they have probably about $1 million US dollars of treasury bills with a face value of 2% interest per annum, which they can discount immediately if they choose to do so. And some of them are already doing that, taking steps to do that.
Okay. Just the last thing on this one before I let you go. Does this, I mean, besides compensating for what, as you call it, an injustice happened in the past, does this now serve to put in place an important brick around the issues of nation building?
Yes, very much so. It's a hugely important step forward. For number one, it meets one of the key requirements of the international community in terms of re-engagement with the government of Zimbabwe. I mean, it's only one of our sins, but it was a big one. And secondly, it has also put to bed the whole question of the status of the land that is now occupied by about 200,000 small-scale farmers who have taken over from the large-scale farmers who preceded them. And those farmers are now going to receive title deeds, which will enable them to use their land as collateral. And that should put Zimbabwean agriculture back on its feet.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Eddie Cross, thanks for your time. What is it once called? The basket of the red basket of Africa, and that all changed. Whether this will change once again, Eddie Cross, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. But it does mean, particularly if you are a Zimbabwean living in South Africa, number two, you're a Zimbabwean in Zimbabwe listening to the show, and or you're one of those farmers or a family member of that farming community who can reflect on what happened then and what do you feel about what's happened now. Welcome to the National Pulse.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's got in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
At Duvet Tradeport, we specialize in helping businesses grow through state-of-the-art manufacturing, infrastructure, logistics services, and international trade links. We're an advanced environment for doing business where most ambitious companies gather. If you're seeking progressive opportunities and looking to build mutually beneficial relationships, move to duvettradeport.co.za to see your business grow beyond potential.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, let's then move on to another important issue. On the one hand, we talked about farms in Zimbabwe. What about food security, but specifically food security in higher education? I tell you what, if we ever are concerned, as we ought to be, about inequality in our country and around the world, the issue of food insecurity is critical, right? Professor Michael Rudolph is with me. He's from UJ and the director for UJ's Center for Ecological Intelligence at the Auckland Park Bunting Road campus. Prof. Rudolph, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for inviting me for a very important topic. Thank you.
I concur. So I understand when we talk about food insecurity, you know, most people will be listening and say, yeah, that just means you don't even know where your meal is going to come from tomorrow morning. And it's that type of level of insecurity. But yours is a specific concern in higher education. Tell me about that.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a very real issue. Now, I just wanted to emphasize that we talk about food and nutrition security. So sometimes people can have food and can fill tummies and satisfy hunger, but it's not necessarily nutritional. And particularly young students need to have the dietary diversity, which gives them all the nutrients that are necessary to concentrate, to be able to do their work under pressure. I mean, that is the reality, and that they also have a well-being. And so this issue is a very big issue. Students get bursaries, they get funding for accommodation to a greater or less extent, but they're left with very little day-to-day funding to cover food costs, and particularly in cities like Johannesburg, where accommodation and food is expensive. Students end up eating high carbohydrates, high sugar, high fats, which are inexpensive food, but which is lacking in the nutrients.
So how do we combat this problem?
So there are a number of ways. Firstly, at UJ, there are a number of systems to address this. UJ is working in partnerships both internally amongst different departments, but also with external partners, where students do get vouchers for meals. But in addition to that, our center has embarked on a very important project of setting up food gardens on campus. And hopefully this is going to be extended to the 28 residences on the 4 different campuses, where students will have a much easier access, and it will be much more affordable to have the kind of dietary diversity which is so important for well-being and development.
So these food gardens you refer to, then, do the students then need to be able to benefit from that food garden? Do they physically have to buy things, or is that then given to them?
So at the moment it's a combination, but at the moment we've got 5 different food gardens on different sites at UJ. The importance of these gardens are also to set up different kinds of systems within an urban environment where you don't have hectares and hectares of land, but you utilize spaces effectively. We use soilless systems, we have vertical gardens, and different kind of systems to show that you can still grow food and make this much more easily available to students, which will just which could make a huge difference to their day-to-day lives.
And I take it, I mean, if this is implemented well, this can then become the prototype, really, for the future, in terms of, when I say future, like immediate future, at all other campuses or higher education institutes, aren't they?
Well, absolutely. And what I'm pleased about is that there is a great buy-in at UJ from senior management. And what is very exciting, particularly for our center, is that we work across all disciplines. We work with colleagues from engineering, from arts, design and architecture, from science, from the Joburg Business School. So really across the board, we are working with colleagues, each one of which is contributing in a cross-disciplinary way to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of growing food in urban environments and on campuses.
And just the last thing on this, what impact does food insecurity have on the morale of these students, keeping in mind they are in this privileged category of students who actually now are doing tertiary education, but they then come to the big city and they're faced with all sorts of challenges. So, yeah, very quickly, what impact does it have on their morale and self-esteem?
Well, a very important question. I just want to preface the answer to the morale and the esteem, and that it has a direct impact on academic performance. It causes a huge distress, and hence it has an impact on their morale and their self-esteem. And being food insecure is a stigma. Quite a number of students are hesitant to, acknowledge or admit. And so we are embarking on creating a safe environment where every student would feel comfortable to share his or her experience so that we can address the problem.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Appreciate your time. Lots to reflect on that. Well done on the attempts, really, where you are now in terms of creating, the demand and the supply for the demand around foods and, vegetation and things like that. I think it's so important. Prof. Michael Rudolph, Director for UJ's Center for Ecological Intelligence. Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. COGTA announces plans to have organophosphate declared illegal, and Russia accused of stepping up its war against Ukraine. For SAFM News, I am Ondela, and a very good afternoon. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa says a full report regarding the continued use of poisonous organophosphate by some spaza shop operators and farmers will soon be sent to Parliament to declare the substance illegal. It is alleged that many spaza shops and farmers are using it to kill the rats, among others. However, it has since emerged that some of the items that are sold by spaza shops end up being contaminated by this poison. Hlabisa spoke to the media after visiting an 8-year-old boy admitted at the Baragwanath Hospital after allegedly consuming contaminated snacks in Soweto.
And very soon, once that report has been concluded, we are willing to take it to the cabinet to take a decision to declare these poisoners to be illegal, to be available in South Africa, and whoever uses it for whatever reason, because the report which we have just received indicates many people have died silently. We want to take those figures to the cabinet to take a decision to declare this poisonous item used in the farming community as illegal.
Hlabisa says it is concerning that some members of the public are using the same poison to commit suicide.
There was one thing that became a concern that was raised by doctors there, that there are so many people, adults, who consumed the organophosphate as a way of committing suicide. And we really want to appeal to our communities. Whatever challenges are there, and when they interview them, people say, I'm unemployed, I have family challenges. Indeed, unemployment is a challenge to our young people, but it doesn't mean end your life.
Please note that the following story contains graphic details which could upset sensitive listeners, including children. The investigating officer in the case of a former teacher who allegedly raped a 13-year-old learner has testified that the girl sustained severe injuries to her genitalia as a result of the repeated rape. Lieutenant Colonel Tsudi Tema testified to oppose the defendant's bid for bail at the Mankweng Magistrate Court in Limpopo. He faces a charge of rape and another of child sexual grooming. Lieutenant Colonel Tema says the medical report shows that the child has suffered severe injuries.
We have a very strong case, Your Worship.
Ya ngwana wa 18 years ba lebelela setho sa ngwana ka go se sharagana ka ona ke na le nne tso masterata ka tsho.
And if only if it was possible, if we can just only take or look at the of the 13-year-old child and look at
Analysts have warned that the current rand weakness could cancel out potential fuel price cuts in May, according to unaudited mid-month fuel price data from the Central Energy Fund. Both grades of petrol could decrease by between 9 and 13.5 cents. This while diesel prices are set for a larger reduction of between 34 and 36 cents per litre, with illuminating paraffin possibly lowered by 26 cents. A likely drop in demand driven by the trade war between the U.S. and China saw Brent crude fall back to $63 per barrel levels. Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers, Makwe Masilela, says further weakness in the local unit could change the outlook.
Because now the rand has just weakened, and as we are talking at fuel prices now at $63 a barrel, and looking at what the rand fleeting with almost 20 to the dollar, that might be a problem going forward, because we're a net importer, and as a net importer, if oil prices maybe go down by 2% as an example, but unfortunately say your rent weakens by 4 or 5%, then it's a zero-sum game.
The European Union's foreign policy chief has accused Russia of stepping up its war against Ukraine despite U.S. efforts to broker a peace deal. Kaja Kallas has told the BBC that deadly attacks on civilian targets had increased. Russia invaded Ukraine on 24 February 2022. This marked the beginning of a full-scale invasion, expanding a conflict that had started in 2014 with their annexation of Crimea. Kallas was speaking ahead of a meeting of Ukraine's allies in Brussels, Belgium, today.
The attacks on Ukraine, and especially on the civilians, have been the deadliest since the start of the war. So this is clear that Russia is really escalating. It takes two to want peace, but it only takes one to want war, and it's clear that Russia wants war.
Recapping the top story, Cooperative Governance Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa says a full report regarding the continued use of poisonous organophosphate by some spaza shop operators and farmers will soon be sent to Parliament to declare the substance illegal. I am on Dilambana for SAFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sour Gallants eye another giant-killing performance. Carlos Alcaraz cruises into the Monte Carlo semi-finals, and Lando Norris sets the early pace in Bahrain. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards New Road, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg slow moving towards Crown interchange, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road, and Daspoort Tunnel in Pretoria queuing at the tunnel. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary truck at Cliffdale, the M4 northbound, a vehicle fire incident reported near Athlone Drive, and Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, the N1 outbound queuing towards the M5 Kuburg interchange, Stellenbosch Arterial Road eastbound in Kales River, slow moving at Nooiensfontein Road, and Marine Drive northbound in Tableview, slow moving towards Dolphin Beach. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
In fact, I asked that question earlier on about, how have you coped with your town or your city, the name of it that being changed. I gave the example of PE and others are calling it now GB, just picking up from the PE scenario that they were called before. How have you coped with that? Not just that place, but many others. I'm just curious to know how it's changed your life. Like, when most people talk about it, they tend to argue about the nuisance factor versus the right to get the right name for a certain place. I wonder what you think. But if you have an opinion, let me know. I'd like to get that 0614 104 107 via WhatsApp, or to call in 086 000 2032. Now, next up, with the Easter holiday weekend imminent, let's talk about some of the plans for the Easter Road Safety Campaign in the KZN region.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit cfi.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI, CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's gone in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience the thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Kherika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
You know, the period around this week, almost week-long police summit, people are very busy about plans and strategic thinking and implementation around policing and safety in our country. We'll get comments, by the way, from the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, just some key points that when he addressed the summit today, right? In the meantime, KwaZulu-Natal bracing not unexpectedly for an exceptionally busy Easter weekend, with traffic volumes expected to surge to more than 1,500 vehicles per hour at toll gates across the province, starting from Thursday, because, Friday is Good Friday at the beginning, so late Thursday or still the afternoon, for many people, it's the holidays, right? So what's the plan then from KZN Transport to ensure that A, the roads are as safe as possible, and B, that nobody breaks the law when driving, but C, if they do break the law, then what's the enforcement around that issue? So, in fact, what we're going to do, we're going to chat now to Indabezinhle Sibia, who's the spokesperson for the KZN MEC for Transport. Appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ashraf. And the MEC was scheduled to talk to you, but unfortunately, he is a bit stuck in the meeting.
Okay, now that's noted. Stuck is a very significant word you use, because one thing people don't want to experience next week is being stuck in traffic on this crazy road from Joburg to Durban, isn't
it? Yeah, no, you're correct. But obviously, as you pointed out in your intro, this morning the MEC was joined by the mayor of Ilembe District Municipality, Councillor Tobani Shandu, the mayor of Watuguza, Councillor Ngiti, the mayor of Mandeni, Councillor Ndlalose. He unveiled a road safety plan, for the Easter holiday as well as the Passover weekend. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you have correctly pointed out 1,500 cars that are projected to go through our toll gates. We had a team from Gauteng, a team from Free State, and a team from Mpumalanga as part of the launch of our Easter road safety campaign. well received by the community of Mandeni, because that's the area where we experienced fatalities, sometime last year as well as this year. Yeah.
So
the
give me some of the specific plans then.
Well, the MEC, number one, we have deployed around 837, a highly efficient and dedicated team from Road Traffic Inspectorate. That has been, deployed, to work in various parts of KwaZulu-Natal to do roadblocks, to check, the roadworthiness of, vehicles that will be transporting tourists as well as worshippers will be, going to various destinations. We, the MEC has also appreciated the intervention from the Minister Barbara Tracy, the deployment of 120, law enforcement officers from the Road Traffic Management Corporation. The management, was also part of the launch. So that is a very clear indication of an integrated approach involving national government, the province, as well as the district and local municipalities.
But when you say
ensuring the safety of our passengers.
And when we say integrated, I mean, I don't think that's any different, right? What has changed this year from, say, last year and the previous years? Because I would think as the challenges grow bigger, then one has to be even more innovative and provide, new ways of doing things.
Yeah, I think, Ashraf, there is some, innovation as well as the energy injected by MEC Sibonso Duma. For instance, if you look at the deployment from national, we are targeting hazardous areas as well as secondary cities where, you have quite a number of people that are visiting. If you look at Richards Bay, for instance, 30 law enforcement officers from national, Durban 40, Pietermaritzburg 20, Potchefstroom 30 members. Now, what is also critical, the MEC indicated that the law enforcement officers must have no mercy. He has affirmed his commitment to work with the National Prosecuting Authority in order to ensure a successful prosecution and conviction of a prison sentence of 6 years. As you know that we've got these new, penalties that were announced by the National Minister. Now, MEC Sibonso Duma has mandated the law enforcement officers to come very hard on those motorists that will be found to be driving under the influence of alcohol. He has said, there is no way that we can negotiate with drunkards. He said, we don't want KwaZulu-Natal to contribute to the national figure of fatalities.
Yeah, but let's just talk about that for a second, right? I mean, the issue of drinking and driving, I mean, it's been around since probably the first time I ever went on air myself as a talk shows, and then even before that when I was a listener, right? Why are we not able to get to grips with it? That means to put a complete clamp on it where it cannot be the norm.
Yeah, we're getting calls from quite a number of people, they are outraged that the MEC is talking about a 6-year sentence. I think that is going to be a deterrent. That is why he has said, the National Prosecuting Authority, the director here in KwaZulu-Natal, she'll be working with, the entire, machinery that will be ensuring the road safety. We've got, quite a number of private, partners that have come on board. We've got, for instance, the cutting-edge technology that the MEC Sibonso Duma announced, the crime recognition software, where, for instance, we can even detect a car that is, unroadworthy. We are even going to be using that software, to check if you are sober. If you are not sober, as you know, the new regulations, the detection of alcohol in your blood, then straight to jail. That is what the MEC has said. Look, there's no way that we can continue like this. People who are drinking and driving and then expect the law enforcement officers to give them a hug, that is going to be the thing of the past.
Thing of the past, which means it was happening before, right? How just the last thing, one thing is these drivers being put off by the deterrent of, high police presence on one hand, and as you said, straight to jail on the other. But in terms of just personal self-consciousness, how far are we down the road where drivers drive well, drive safely, drive without drinking alcohol, even if there are no police officers manning the roads, because it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, you see, we had a pastor, a professor here in KwaZulu-Natal, Professor Boganjalo Goba, who presided over the merger of the first ever institutions of higher learning. He came up with a concept which was adopted by the provincial government, where he said, look, do right even when there's nobody watching, So that is very important that we begin to act responsible as citizens, as the people of KwaZulu-Natal, as the people of South Africa, so that we hand over to future generation a country that is intact. If you look at the drinking and the driving, it is creating havoc. Alcohol-related road traffic deaths amounts to 57.5%. The burden of, in our healthcare system as a result of people who are drinking and driving is very terrible. People that are supposed to be getting quality patient care, they get compromised by the drunkards, who are, killing people on the road.
Absolutely. Well, here's the last thing. I'll get a tweet from Kaushik Karan, who I think does a lot of things in investment analysis and other things. And he's just picked up a report from Discovery, their claims, and saying 60% of unnatural deaths for people under the age of 30 are by motor vehicle accidents. Or incidents, and that really sums up exactly where the dilemma and the huge challenge that we face. So appreciate your time in Ndabezinhle Sibiya, and best wishes as we get into that Easter weekend and effectively a double weekend, long weekends of sorts. So much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Let's keep the pulse ticking. That's a safety call, isn't it?
TS Galaxy Queens have a special game plan to display a stellar performance to collect maximum points in their own backyard. However, Royal AM want to demonstrate their royalty with a win away from home. This is the Hollywoodbet Super League. Don't miss out on TS Galaxy Queens versus Royal AM Ladies this Saturday, 12th April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get into the other issue. One is from traffic policing, around issues of traffic, to actual policing overall. There's been the policing summits that's been taking place throughout the week. Now, the South African Police Service held a media briefing earlier today to discuss the outcomes of this policing summit. So we're going to pick out some clips from them, some key bullet point highlights. The Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, talked about, firstly, the 4 provinces that, according to them, are the hotspot provinces of the country.
3 key priorities have been set for the 7th administration, namely inclusive growth and job creation, reducing poverty, capable, ethical and developmental state. These address the challenges from a safety and security point of view that hamper us from achieving what we've set out to achieve. There are 4 provinces which we classify as hotspots, and for that reason we're focusing on dealing decisively with crimes in these provinces, namely Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape and Western Cape, without losing any focus on others as well. Our top priorities are reducing murder, removing unnecessary firearms from communities, removing drugs, fighting GBVNF.
Right, and there's more. Then he answered a question from the media about media reports on the issues involving IPID and the KZN Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
Now, on the issue that you are talking about of IPID, Provincial Commissioner of SAPS in KZN, now I am, and I'm sure National Commissioner as well, I am reading from media just together with you and like you, everything that you are asking about. There is nothing formal that has come to me in the form of a report in any way. If there's been a withdrawal, I am not privy to that. It would mean that they took a decision and they communicated a decision, not to me, but to the person that they have to deal with in accordance with the way they work and their mandates. Now, they have not briefed us. What IPID does, for people to know, they decide when they want to brief the minister. They decide on what they would brief the minister. They also decide on whatever detail or not detail. And you are not expected to say yes or no. You are expected to note what they are saying and so on. So generally, they are an independent body. They have not briefed us or updated us on anything in that regard. But we are reading, we are aware through reading what's being said in media.
You know, we often talk about the morale of the nation and amongst many things that affect us. You know, it could be issues of racism and poverty and insecurity and inequality. But amongst the one factor that comes up very much in the top and it straddles, you know, all the racial, ethnic, political divides that sometimes we have in our country, right, is the issue about crime. So what impact does, on the one hand, we may say, does that have on our morale as people? But I could put the same question to the SAPS. You know, what does it do to them, right? So interestingly enough, the SAPS National Commissioner General Fani Masemola spoke about just that, the SAPS Morale Survey.
Day 3 of the summit opened with the results of the SAPS Morale Survey, which painted a picture of low morale, high stress and operational fatigue among police personnel. This became a powerful backdrop for discussions on organizational culture and performance. The summit deliberation focused on how human capital development, including more vigorous recruitment processes such as integrity testing, targeted upskilling and leadership transformation. It was also resolved that recruiting the right people into policing, those with integrity, resilience, and the right temperament was fundamental to long-term service excellence. The psychological well-being featured prominently. The summit explored how the trauma of daily exposure to violence affects performance, judgment, and long-term health. The session on career development and mentorship underscored the need to move beyond compliance, training towards deliberate leadership, pipelines, and structured professional growth pathways. A core reflection was that professionalism is not a static standard, but a culture that must be nurtured through consistent values, recognition of good work, and accountability for poor performance.
And then finally, General Fani Masemola spoke about, or in fact shared, the all-important 2025 policing summit resolutions. Listen to this.
State and performance of the SAPS focused on operational efficiencies, and we identified pragmatic strategies that will improve and advance maximum effectiveness in policing, while strategically repositioning the SAPS to ensure long-term relevance, heightened professionalism, and the restoration of public trust. Ladies and gentlemen, in making this momentum hosting of the Policing Summit, and to demonstrate the unwavering commitment to the SAPS, to the summit resolutions and program of action, the SAPS will establish a National Policing Summit 2025 Operations Room. This facility will be used as a permanent scoreboard where we will track and trace progress on the resolution of the summit periodically for the next 5 years. We believe that this significant move will hold the management of SAPS accountable to the nation as we commit to the repositioning policing in this country.
Okay, reaction from you regarding the police or the policing summit. It's been on all week. What did you make of it? How convinced are you that the police, in facing some of their own internal problems as the police service and then the external in dealing with crime in the country, are they on track as well as in terms of those resolutions and the overall plans? Are you confident that what you hear gives you a thumbs up and you say, hey, that's great? So I'd like to get your thoughts. Also the issues of transport in KZN, or rather traffic issues around the Easter holiday period coming up next week, and the conversation we had earlier on about 9 South African MPs who then went on a fact-finding mission to Israel. We're uncertain who actually funded it. It's a bit unclear at this point in time, but there's been a thought that they were part of the Friends of Israel mission. We'll get a reaction. We've had Kenny Kuneni talking early on to Sakina Kamenda, which we played the clip. We'll get an ANC reaction after 5 o'clock. Let's get the news headlines. It's for 30 years on Dela Mbala.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the CCMA has given the Passenger Rail Agency 60 days to present a wage offer to the workers. Currently, the employer has refused to present any salary offer due to financial challenges. Cooperative Governance Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa says a full report regarding the continued use of poisonous organophosphate by some spaza shop operators and farmers will soon be sent to Parliament to declare the substance illegal. Millions of people in northern China have been told to stay indoors this weekend to avoid extremely high winds. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hoos.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N14 westbound in Krugersdorp, queuing towards Hendrik Potgieter Road. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash after Olifantsfontein Road. And the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on the ramp to the N12 east at Kilulis Interchange. In KZN, the M7 queuing at South Coast Road. The M4 northbound has a vehicle fire incident reported near Athlone Drive. And the M19 westbound in Westville has a crash before Dunkeld Road exit. In Cape Town, Marine Drive southbound in Milnerton has a crash before Broad Road. Slow-moving traffic through Wynberg, and Govan-Becky Road is slow-moving at Danafontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
To me, I was wondering, you take selfies, don't you?
I do.
So why don't you take one now so that people can see the cricket top that you're wearing? Yeah,
Okay.
you need to post it.
Okay.
Because, Tumi wears a sports top every single day, and that makes me very jealous because I wonder, why don't I do so?
I think you should.
And what's the equivalent if I'm not wearing a sports top? Doesn't sports tops somehow give you a great sense of patriotism if you're wearing the country's or sometimes your club, right?
Yeah.
But if not a sports top, what could you wear that effectively shows off your same level of allegiance, not in sport, but in anything else? Now, I'm just saying this because if you're listening and you're watching us via live streaming, you can not just check Tumi's selfie, which is now posted on social media.
Yeah.
I think she'll do it, but also you can watch it on streaming live. So just go, on YouTube, on the X platform, on Twitter, as well as on Facebook. We're streaming live, and you can catch Tumi in her full pink South African cricket top, right? You go ahead with your sport.
Let's start things off with football this hour. Well, Marumo Gallants coach Abdeslam Wadu has admitted that it won't be easy beating Orlando Pirates in the Nedbank Cup semi-finals, but they are determined to go the long yard in the competition. Now, Gallants are one of only 4 teams to have beaten Pirates in the league so far this season and may fancy themselves against the Buccaneers yet again.
It's a big challenge. It will not be easy because it will be another game. Every games don't look like the same. We will try to prepare a new plan with a lot of ambitions. And for my players, it's a final before the time. So it's a big final for us. We have a lot to win in that game. I told them that if you manage to go to the final and you save the club, it's like a title for you, even you started very bad.
Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso has maintained his position. This is regarding fixture congestions, but acknowledges that being at the top of the table and reaching the semi-finals of 2 major cup competitions is very rewarding. The Brazilians lock horns with Kaizer Chiefs in the other semi-final of the Nedbank Cup.
I agree. We cannot be in the moments of decisions without going through the process. Obviously that we still have some features that are some congestion, but we've been managing, and I think from now on things will be manageable. Despite the level also increase, that brings extra, I will not say pressure, but extra level of demand of levels of concentration, extra volume of work from our part, so that we can be very detailed and simple in the way then we bring those things for the players.
Elsewhere, South American governing body CONMEBOL has put forward a proposal to expand the men's 2030 World Cup to 64 teams. Now, the tournament will be hosted by Spain, Morocco and Portugal after the opening matches are held in Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay. The 2026 World Cup will be the first with 48 teams, but CONMEBOL wants to expand further to 2030 to mark the competition's 100-year anniversary. Imagine a global showpiece with 64 teams in it, that competition. Isn't it a lot? It's too much.
Well, why are you saying it is a lot? It'll take a whole year to complete. What about the PSL? And what about the league season?
Yeah, no.
But here's the point. If that's the case, well, there's two parts to it. The one thing is it'll take a whole year. They might as well call it the United Nations, because let every country just compete,
honestly.
Right? But maybe the other part is that actually every country does compete in the World Cup already. They just don't compete in the final tournament. That means when you win the qualifiers, you already are in the World Cup.
No, but the World Cup is like another.
No, but I mean, you have to earn the right to be there. You see the problem with this now.
Fully agree.
Like even, I think, with Africa now, it'll be about, 9 countries for the next World Cup? It's a lot easier, and we hope Bafana makes it. Even for the Under-17 Championship, there'll be 7 or 8 or something like that. You also want to create a sense that it's difficult to get in.
Yeah, so that when you're actually there, you feel that pride of competing in the World Cup. Well, we'll see if it will be accepted or not. In motorsport, McLaren's Lando Norris was fastest in practice 1 for the Bahrain Grand Prix ahead of Alpine's Pierre Gasly and Lewis Hamilton of Ferrari. Norris was ahead by 0.238 seconds ahead of Gasly, with Hamilton 0.596 seconds slower than Norris and Williams driver Alex Albon 4th. In cricket, former England cricketer James Anderson has been awarded a knighthood. This is following his services to cricket, with the bowler recognised by Rishi Sunak's resignation honours list. Now, he's one of the few fast bowlers to play into his 40s, and in February 2023, he became the oldest player to top the ICC men's test bowling rankings. Anderson holds the record for the most wickets taken by a fast bowler in test cricket, with 704. In tennis, Carlos Alcaraz advanced into the Monte Carlo Masters semi-finals with a 4-6, 7-5 and 6-3 win. This is against local favourites Arthur Fils. Meanwhile, in golf, Justin Rose will be looking to pick up where he left off in the opening round of the Masters, as Rory McIlroy saw his Grand Slam hopes suffer a big setback following a nightmare finish at Augusta National. Rose charged up the leaderboard with 8 birdies in a stunning 7-under 65, with his only dropped shot coming in the final hole, giving the former world number 1 a commanding 3-shot advantage over Scotty Scheffler, Ludwig Erberg and Corey Connors. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. I'll have more in the next hour.
And I've noticed you've posted your picture already.
I have.
And I'm suggesting everybody check it out on Twitter. What's your Twitter account handle?
Dumin Kapele.
Okay, and we've just retweeted it. I've certainly done it. I'll get Rosani to retweet from an SFM radio point of view.
And see my radio face.
Yeah, but I mean, ideas. So are you committing to every day now?
Every Friday.
Oh, every Friday.
Every Friday. I'll definitely wear. I actually already do it.
It
Maybe we should
like
have it as a feature.
Well, maybe. I thought that was exactly the plan. It seems like you are wearing it every day. Okay, more sports in an hour, when she'll still be wearing the South African cricket top, unless she decides to change. Like, footballers give their tops away and they change it after the game. So maybe she'll do that too.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV License Rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, breezing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward, just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 Rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV License Rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
Last season's finalists, Masandawana, want to reach another final, but Amakosi believe their fans deserve a special ticket to the final. This is the Nedbank Cup semi-final contest. Kiona! Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus Kaizer Chiefs on Sunday, 13 April, live streaming on SABC Plus and SABC One at 5:30 p.m. Then on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to those numbers with Paswane Mpatlele, Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. Paswane, local, global on a Friday afternoon. What can you tell us?
Afternoon, Ashraf. Well, all I can say is that to start it off, it was a week of complacency at display for us this week. Our CV came through during the course of the week when we saw a spotlight being put on the bond market moves, which were rising, and it is a key output for the U.S. administration to determine whether they're doing good or not, unlike the previous, the first administration where they looked at the stock market. Currently, it is rising, reflecting that sellers are getting out of U.S. assets and increasing the cost of refinancing for everyone, including the government. And this has led to Trump being the one who blinks first and applying the 90-day pause outside China, helping support market sentiment. But China development is that they're going to fight till the end. They increased levies to the U.S. to 125%. The outcome is that we're seeing a weaker dollar, 3-year lows around 99, down a percent. It is saying bearish, increasing the rate of cuts coming in early as May. We are also, as it is also reflecting the concern around the weaker growth and inflation outlook, inflation in the short term. When you look at the GDP formula for any country, the weakness for the US is reflecting weakness. Reflecting more is that the sentiment around major asset managers from the US and banking CEOs as having a bearish outlook, and is reflected also in the oil prices that is bearish at $63.30 a barrel, reflecting that growth is a problem currently with the US weakening. Meanwhile, gold is bullish, continues to be so, is loving these developments. Best play year to date, 2 new all-time record highs, up currently 1.8% at $3,232. Data today is continuing to show that the US is under pressure. US confidence is declining. Expectations of inflation going forward is rising to levels since 1981. Going forward, we're just facing a Q1 earnings from the US that could emerge with seeing margin squeezes from companies as their outlook continues to reflect some weaknesses. As the VIX remains above levels such as 30, it encourages stock to remain very volatile, which is not a good day to be buying an index, but rather be stock picking. Currently, index performance, we're seeing the JSE up 0.3, thanks to the resource sector up 4%, while industrials were down 0.8, financials down 1%. Europe FTSE DAX, FTSE is down 0.8, DAX up 0.8. US across the board down, Nasdaq S&P is down 0.2%. Just closing down with our currency space, we're seeing the rand against the dollar is relatively strong at 19.18, but against the euro and pounds weaknesses. Rand against the euro is at 21.83, rand against the pound 25.11. As a closing, it's time for patience and wait and see.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Paswana. You have a Have a magic weekend, and we'll talk on Monday, I would think, right? There we are. Right, we're going to still take your calls as well. But before we get to that, there's an issue and a challenge, really, from the African Unite Borders Bus Trucks Association. Let's find out what they want after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So the African Unite Borders Bus Trucks Association released a statement today welcoming new drone and body cam technology, that we spoke about yesterday, in fact. But there's a big but if around that. They believe, I understand, some of the monies could actually go elsewhere to better use, I think. We're going to find out exactly. Perhaps while we connect with our guest, let's see if I can take some of your WhatsApp messages, voice notes, as well as some of your calls. Let me just get Phineas to sort that out.
Good afternoon, Azra, and good afternoon, listeners. This is Patrick from Soweto. Azra, I'm still saying there is no leadership. I'm repeating, there is no leadership. There is lack of leadership. Even these MPs, they do whatever they like because there is no leadership. There is no accountability. They do as they like, you understand. If we had a strong leader, I think our country will be in a good stage now, you understand. I've listened to this guy, this Patriotic Alliance guy, you understand that besides of being, their history is not good, but what they're doing to go to Israel, there's no leadership. So we can do whatever and blame whatever. There is no leadership. Thank you, Patrick in Soweto.
Okay, no leadership, says Patrick. Let's get another comment.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Muzi here. I feel very good that my city has been renamed to Tshwane, which is an African name. I'm well-traveled. I've been to Thailand. I've been to Qatar. I've been to a few European countries. And every country has named the cities according to the languages that are there. So I'm so happy for the name of our city. It makes me feel more at home.
Okay, well, that's nice. The question I've been asking is how have you adjusted to that name change? Here's another.
Ashraf, that Israel thing, I think if you play a bit further on Kenny Kunene's interview with Sakina there, he even makes it very clear about his party's position and whether and how they handle ANC when ANC is doing things which are not sort of aligning with their own constitution, like ANC hosting Hamas. He says he hasn't got a problem with that, and he says so ANC must not have any problems with them going to Israel. Anonymous.
Okay, that's an interesting point to say that, the different political parties, they differ on many issues within the country and they still work together. So why should the ANC have a problem with the Patriotic Alliance doing something that they don't necessarily agree with? We're talking about that visit to Israel, right? Let's talk about the African Unite Borders Bus Trucks Association after this.
The Bavarians want to display quality play to emphasize why they are called FC Hollywood. But BVB is courageous to cement a decent spot in the top half. It's all or nothing. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch one of the world's greatest football derbies, the Klassiker, FC Bayern München versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 12 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM music, crafted to make you feel real good. Handpicked just for your pleasure. Classics sounding so good, only on SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so we spoke about the issues of Border Management Authority yesterday and the webcams and the new drones and glowing report about new technology. But the African Unite Borders Bus Trucks Association, they have a position on this. They've issued a statement. They're saying thumbs up to the technology, but they believe that is not enough. So then what is enough? Is enough? Let's get the thoughts of Mukwati Pumotso, the chairperson of the African Unite Borders Bus Trucks Association. Appreciate your time. You're on the National Pulse. Hello.
Yeah, thank Ashraf Gada and the listeners in South Africa entire SADC.
Thank you. So I understand you saying the technology is fine, but it's not enough. What is enough for you then?
Indeed, the technology is not enough. We can put as many units, anti-corruption units, as possible, but we are not going to win. What we need here is the president of the country to protect the country, to protect people who voted him by calling or to summon the African leaders, including the SADC chair, which is Emerson Mnangagwa and other leaders here. Because most of the problem that is happening here is mostly undocumented passengers, undocumented individuals who don't have passport, try to cross, risking their life like Limpopo River with the crocodiles. So the problem here, the root cause is that our African leaders, mostly Zimbabwe, they make passport very expensive, from 4,500 to 5,000, which is very expensive, where people of Zimbabwe, they can't afford it. That's why even corruption, issues of bribing, our law enforcement started. So if we don't get accountable of President Mnangagwa to make sure that he suspend or condemn this indirect sanction to South Africa, so we are not going to win this battle. Because Mnangagwa, he make a life hard for South Africa, because half the population of Zimbabwe, they are here in South Africa without passport, whereas we are sharing everything. So
but I mean, you see, this is my point is you're saying two different things. The one is the technology, and you have a department that deals with the technology. Now, the broader issue, you can speak to Home Affairs about their overall policies in the country. And as you know, officially the policy is you can't come into the country undocumented. You can't come here illegally. That's the official policy anyway. So what I'm saying, one is being done by Home Affairs and government at a national level. The other is just the Border Management Authority. And they can't now stop doing what you're telling them or what they're planning to do because you feel they should even go further. They must continue.
No, what we are saying is that the technology will welcome, but it is not enough in a way like government of Zimbabwe, Malawi, and other countries. They must be accountable, because here we are talking of corruption mostly done by undocumented. Even the bus operators, as we speak, they are carrying undocumented passengers where government of Zimbabwe, they are aware. And you cannot go across to the Zimbabwean side without a passport. That shows that Zimbabwean government and others, they are undermining South Africa. And you will know that all this technology and the units, they are using the taxpayers' money to introduce units. Government of Zimbabwe, they are losing nothing. They just watch us. And at the same time, what we are trying as an organization is that government of Zimbabwe, they are charge us a lot of money for gate pass. But when they come to South Africa, they come for free. And they will remember that instead of suspending tariffs here in the South Africa, because they know that we share hospital with them. And also, when they get accident in the country, they claim even rough. So we feel that President Ramaphosa must stop protecting Mnangagwa with the expense of South African votes, because it is not enough. You will not so far. You make a remark to U.S. to suspend the tariff imports from the America, without even including other political parties. You will remember that Mnangagwa is a chair of the SADC, but he speaks on behalf of Zimbabwe only, instead of collective, so that they can speak in one voice.
Okay. But just hold it. What do you think then is an acceptable solution? You've got two countries. They sovereign countries. They run their own affairs. We can't interfere with how Zimbabwe runs its own affairs. South Africa does its own. Yes, as a neighboring country, when there are problems in another country and people want to look for work, we open the doors to them. But they need to be documented. But what for you then would be what I'd call a win-win solution here?
The first thing when we fight corruption, if any country for deportation, it is the time that country of South Africa must start to build those countries. Because you remember that all this deportation, they are also using our taxpayers' money. And they are not suffering any cost. And that's why we're saying we can put as many units as possible. But if we don't send them this bill of cost to Zimbabwe, to Malawi, anywhere, they will not have any suffer, because the money that's supposed to support the use of South Africa for job creation, now it is diverted to prevent the criminal activity.
All right, but now you see, it's not something we can win a battle with easily, because if we say we're spending too much money on even the technology, then we're just never going to spend anything, and then we're never going to get things under control.
Yeah, that one, if maybe we can, as a country, and then we say president because we elect him, because we cannot take responsible for the other country using our expense money, even the tax.
Okay.
So what is the purpose of the leadership for the Ramaphosa?
Well, I mean, I really can't answer on behalf of Ramaphosa about what is their purpose of the leadership, excepting, we have a country, we have a constitution, we have policies, and we put the policies in place, and sometimes we change the policies. So, I mean, you've raised your points. I'm pretty certain people will be listening. Many may feel actually Mukwati is spot on. Others may say, some things are just not practical because of the geopolitical relationships between neighboring countries. But let's leave it at that. Mukwati Pomotso, the chairperson of the African Unite Borders Bus Trucks Association. You have any thoughts on that conversation? Certainly add to it, to the National Pulse.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, let's see if I can get. I understand there's a technical issue receiving some calls. I'm just going to check with Keys if that is the case, and that's why we've had some problems with actual calls. And let's see if we can sort it out. But what I can do now is get back to some of the issues we've been talking about: Zimbabwe and Israel and the ANC. Here's one about Zimbabwe.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This issue of Zimbabwe, Ashraf, it's a gimmick, I'm telling you. At present moment, Zimbabwe doesn't have that kind of money. That's number one. Number two, Ashraf, it's a way. Remember the story that was going around last week. It's just a story to make as if the president of Zimbabwe is doing something for Zimbabwe. But at the end of the day, they are doing nothing. If they can't buy treatment chemicals for treating water in the capital only, do you think they are going to get that kind of money? No, thanks. James Johannesburg.
Okay, there you are.
This issue.
Okay, that's your point. Let's see. In fact, let's get a call now. AB, right, let's get to AB in Durban who's calling, and hopefully the lines are all working now. AB, go for it. Hello.
Right, Ashraf, I am certain that the fact-finding group of DA and Patriotic Front politicians had a really wonderful time during the recent visit to Israel, wining and dining at the highest level, even having a photo op with the Israeli president. They came back and reported that the facts that they found was that everything was hunky-dory, everything was coming up roses. The Palestinians are all very happy. They said there was no apartheid. They forgot to mention or investigate that there are 67 apartheid laws discriminating against the Palestinians. But no doubt they didn't have time to check on the mass slaughter, the genocide taking place. Maybe a few kilometers from Jerusalem, they should have visited Jenin, where 40,000 Palestinians have been booted out and their homes have been demolished and bulldozers tearing up streets, electricity.
All right,
and
but AB, let me just get this right. I mean, we know of the problems. I mean, there's huge, issues of genocidal intent in that country, and it's going on for a long, long time. But I don't necessarily want to talk to you about that. What I'm interested in is the issue of the principle of a fact-finding trip. I mean, yes, we know it's obviously sponsored by certain lobby groups. We get that, right? But is it okay for them to go on that trip and find out for themselves? Or if, as you're suggesting, they may get a one-sided view, should they go the whole hog? For example, you can't say you're in Israel if you haven't been to Gaza or the West Bank and say that's Israel, because that entire region, no matter what it's called, is actually really one region, isn't it? So your thoughts on that?
The whole place, the whole area, whether it's the West Bank or Gaza, is controlled by Israel. They put the Gaza, for example, under siege for the last 17 years. So this fact-finding mission should go and check on exactly how the Palestinians are being oppressed. But I think perhaps you should get this honorable members into your studio so they can tell us what facts they found.
Okay, and you do say honorable with some degree of sarcasm. Got that, AB, in German. Here's a quick comment on Israel once again.
Hi, good day, SFM and the listeners. On this issue of Patriotic Alliance going to Israel, I blame it to the voters. I mean, if we're still voting people just because Udumile or is well-known, I mean, if you can still vote a person who was eating sushi on women's stomach, do you see a vision there that is someone who can carry the country somewhere? So, Awam Gabaza, those are the people we like most in South Africa, and those are the people that are not going to take us anywhere because they only think for themselves and for their fame.
Okay, got that. Well, again, a diversity of opinions, and I welcome further comments about it. We'll chat to the ANC after and get their perspective after 5 o'clock. Let's get the news now. Yeah, it is 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Deadline for PRASA to present wage offer and report on Sparta shop poisoning to be sent to Parliament. Good day to you. The CCMA has given the passenger rail agency 60 days to present a wage offer to workers. Currently, PRASA's refused to present any salary offer due to financial challenges. This prompted labour unions SATAW and UNTU to take the employer to the CCMA. Workers are demanding a 15% wage hike. UNTU spokesperson Atinkosi Plaki.
This process should have commenced in October 2024 according to the rules of engagement, but unfortunately we found ourselves at the CCMA. The CCMA did grant the management the 30-day extension for them to go back to their principals and to get a mandate. However, the CCMA did break this process to a 60-day process basically. So you have your 30 days whereby management will go back to their principals, get a mandate and also look at their financial position. After that, we will have then 15 days whereby we go back to the PRASA bargaining forum, whereby we try to see if management and labour can find each other.
The Cooperative Governance Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa says a full report regarding the continued use of poisonous organophosphate by some spaza shop operators and farmers will soon be sent to Parliament to declare the substance illegal. It's alleged that many spaza shops and farmers are using it to kill rats and other rodents. However, it's since emerged that some of the items sold by spaza shops end up being contaminated by this poison. The Minister elaborates.
And very soon, once that report has been concluded, we are willing to take it to the Cabinet to take a decision to declare these poisoners to be illegal, to be available in South Africa, and whoever uses it for whatever reason, because the report which we have just received indicates many people have died silently. We want to take those figures to the Cabinet to take a decision to declare this poisonous item used in the farming community as illegal.
The MK Party's Youth League has launched their national Where Is My Vote campaign against the IEC's alleged vote rigging during last year's elections. The Youth League marched from Mary Fitzgerald Square in Newtown in Johannesburg to the Concourt. The MK Party claims the Commission failed to uphold its mandate to conduct free and fair elections, resulting in the disenfranchisement of voters and the manipulation of election outcomes. The Youth League's Qiniso Tlebani.
Our will was stolen, so it's a very serious matter. So as the MK Youth League, every month there will be a program regarding this issue. On the 25th of April, we will be in KZN. There will be a march there that says bring back KZN to its rightful owners, which is MK Party. On the 3rd of June, we're going to Bloemfontein as the MK Youth League. We'll be there. Our party will be submitting papers there. So every month we'll be on the streets regarding this matter because IEC did not do justice to us.
The Police Minister, Zinzin Kunu, says a partnership forum has been established to encourage businesses to work with police in implementing new crime combating strategies. He addressed the media in Pretoria about some of the recommendations taken at the recent National Policing Summit in Kempton Park, east of Johannesburg.
We firmly concretize our relationship by getting business committing into 5 commitments that we will implement jointly. They include upgrading a number of identified police stations, 5 all in all that we'll start with in the country, and digitizing dockets and all of those matters. We want to see this working, and there is a partnership forum that was established, and they are now beginning to work as we end our summit yesterday.
SA National Parks has welcomed an 11-year jail sentence given to a poacher in the Skakuza Regional Court in Mpumalanga. Elias Sitole was found guilty on 6 counts of poaching in the Kruger National Park. SANPark spokesperson Ike Pathla.
The Rangers Corps, the South African Police Services, and all parties involved in the successful prosecution and conviction. We also commend the anti-poaching team's vigilance, which led to the apprehension of the convicted poacher. This is a victory for the rhino and the country.
Finally, millions of people in northern China have been told to stay indoors this weekend to avoid extremely high winds. Workers have been told to hurry home, classes have been suspended, and outdoor events have been cancelled. Officials say the gales could be strong enough to blow people off their feet. The wind sweeping in from Mongolia will also bring a sharp drop in temperatures. The top story, the CCMA has given the passenger rail agency 60 days to present a wage offer to workers. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Goos.
Coming up in your sports this hour, format of cricket at Olympics in 2028. Confirmed Fatlu Davids wins Coach of the Month, and Bulls set to break new ground in Europe. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Germiston queuing towards Geldenhuys interchange, the N1 northbound in Pretoria queuing towards Garsfontein, and the M1 southbound in Parktown is slow moving towards Houghton Drive exit. In KZN, the N3 westbound, a stationary truck before Cliffdale exit, the M4 northbound has a vehicle fire incident reported near Athlone Drive, and the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound slow moving towards the N2 highway, the M5 southbound queuing towards the N2 highway, and the N1 outbound, a stationary truck on Monte Vista off-ramp. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's got in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, so on a Friday, we normally go into the Friday Fireside Chat, and I've had a privilege of speaking to some of the most significant people in the country. Last week we had the Vice Chancellor of Wits University, Vice Chancellor Vilakazi. The week before, did we have Busi Mavuso, the CEO of Business Leadership SA? So, and so many others, by the way. Why I'm telling you this, just check it out. Go to safm.co.za and then go podcast, then go the National Pulse, and you'll find all the podcasts there of the shows that we've done here. So really would love it if you listen to it and share it with other people too. But I'm also saying that we're not having a fireside chat today. That's because these things happen sometimes where you have a guest and at the last moment other priorities take over and they just have to, some urgent matters, and they have to deal with it. So my apology if you're expecting the fireside chat today, but we're not having it, unfortunately, okay? But soon it'll get back to normal. Let's, however, talk about another big issue that I suppose is the type of issues you will talk about when you have your own fireside chat or your bride, right? And that's the issue of the 9 South African MPs who went on a visit to what is called Israel. A few days ago, they just came back, I understand, and they call it a fact-finding tour, fact-finding mission, right? So there's been a response. Kenny Kuneni from the Patriotic Alliance effectively saying they're within their rights, and they, as the Patriotic Alliance, they differ with the ANC on many issues, but they're still part of government, and they do this. And in the same way, the ANC needs to respect their position too. So lots of questions coming out of it, but let's take it a step further. Now, the ANC's study group on international relations and cooperation has criticized the recent visit to Israel by members of the Democratic Alliance, the Patriotic Alliance, and the African Christian Democratic Party, arguing that their visit constitutes a clear endorsement of Israel's policies. Let's find out more about that and why do they say what they say. Supra Mahumapelo is with me, the chairperson of the ANC's study group on international relations and cooperation. Appreciate your time, Supra. Thanks for joining us. So first things first, I mean, the key part that you believe their visit constitutes a clear endorsement of Israel's policies. Tell me why you think so.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners of SAFM. Well, firstly, this group, which is mainly led by Powell from the Democratic Alliance, South Africans must understand that it's not for the first time she does this on behalf of the Democratic Alliance. Just before the elections last year, she wrote a letter to the United States of America and saying the U.S. must come here in South Africa because there's going to be violence after the elections because the ANC will have lost the elections. They didn't end there.
Okay, but I mean, Supra, just from a position of time, that may have happened. We'll come to that in a moment. Let's talk about my question to you. Why do you think...
Well, everybody knows what Israel is doing, committing genocide on the people of Palestine. Now, the other thing is they go there and they call themselves MPs coming from the Republic of South Africa's parliament. I have checked with parliament as the study group. They don't have a mandate to go there and call themselves MPs. So they must be clear to the people of South Africa and the rest of the world that they are not representing parliament. So they are creating an impression that they are representing parliament. Parliament debated the matter of Israel and Palestine, and there's a resolution which was taken by parliament condemning the state of Israel on what it's doing to the people of Palestine, how they are maiming and killing women and children.
So you're saying, based upon the resolution that has been passed by a majority, and I hear that, right, that on that basis, no South African MP can go on a fact-finding tour to that region representing Parliament or representing government, in fact, while opposing the official position as per the resolution. Is that what you're saying?
They must go there and represent themselves as individuals and not call themselves MPs of the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. Everybody has got the right to go anywhere in the world. They can go. But let them not create an impression that they are there to represent Parliament of South Africa. I've checked with the office of the Speaker. The office doesn't know anything about them going to Israel.
Okay. In fact, we had attempted to speak to a representative from the DA, and they made the point they're not commenting because all these MPs went in their personal capacity. That means they went as individuals, which you actually said they're allowed to go.
Ashraf, I can't do anything nocturnally which is wrong as a member of parliament. And I don't regard that as a possibility of putting the name of Parliament into disrepute. If I do something in my personal capacity, I must say I'm Mr. Supra Mahuma Pelo from South Africa. And don't call myself that I'm there as an MP from the Republic of South Africa's Parliament. So they are creating a wrong impression, and we are going to insist that they will have to apologize for creating that impression that Parliament had somehow sanctioned them going there to represent us as the country.
Okay. Did they create that impression? I mean, did they either say that publicly, while there, or either way create that impression?
Let them object to the way the statements are made. If you read the statements that are in the public, the statements that are there in the public, including the social media, they are saying MPs from South Africa went on a fact-finding mission in Israel. So they should be correcting it and say, no, we are going there as Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, and it has got nothing to do with the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. Because when we take an oath in Parliament, we take an oath and become respecters of the Constitution. We are bound by the Constitution in front of the judge. So we can't go around the world and be pretending to be representing South Africa. What we know, we are representing our own narrow political.
All right, but if the articles or the communication coming out of that region talks about people from South Africa as opposed to saying members of Parliament of South Africa, there is a difference.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
That is okay, because if you are a South African, you can't denounce your citizenship because you have gone to visit Israel for whatever reason. But Parliament is an institution. So if you go as a South African, there's no problem. You've got the right to go anywhere in the world, like AfriForum has gone to the US and Solidarity. We don't have a problem with them, irrespective of what. We have a problem with what they say and how they said it about South Africa. But they've got the right to go anywhere in the world.
Interestingly enough, Kenny Kuneni, when he spoke to Sakina Kamwenda early on, and we played some of that sound as well, he made the point that he was unclear who actually funded the trip, and he will now find out, as opposed to having known early on who funded the trip. Do you find that strange?
It's very strange. Not only that, if there's a fact-finding mission in Israel, why not make other MPs aware that, man, we are campaigning for a trip to Israel, fact-finding mission, circulate it to everybody. Those who are interested, they can then say, okay, Speaker, we are going, can you constitute a group going to Parliament, a delegation, or can we go there in our individual capacities? Make it transparent if you think the cost you are going there for is just.
I mean, it's interesting to note, and I stand to be corrected, that most of the parties that have been named are either totally supportive of the Israeli position with regard to Palestine, or if not totally supportive, then they certainly are. They would either condemn the Palestinian position, or they would be silent in condemning the Israeli position in terms of labeling it genocide or genocidal intent, which is what the ICJ has done, and many, many luminaries around the world, including, for example, the former public protector Thuli Madonsela has done, right? So does that surprise you that only certain parties actually went and not, for example, the ANC and the EFF and the MK party and Al-Jamaa? I can run through a whole lot more.
You can see it's a certain faction that belongs to a particular ideology. Because what is happening in Israel? Who is being murdered in Israel? Palestinians. Why didn't they go to Gaza and Rafah? In addition to them going to Israel, go to West Bank and come back and say to Parliament, okay, we may have not told Parliament that we are going there, but what we have seen either confirms what we have resolved here as Parliament, or doesn't confirm what we have resolved here or as Parliament, and as Parliament put a motion and say, we have now seen what's happening in Gaza. We urge Parliament to now constitute a formal committee to go there. Why if there are genuine MPs who have got integrity, if I were them, I will do that and not hide the intentions why we actually went there.
Okay, let's end by going back to where it all started. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you can do about this?
Just repeat, Ashraf.
I said, what is it that you as in the ANC and your ANC study group, what is it that you can do about this? What is it that you want to do about this?
We are going to write to the Speaker. We are going to write to the Speaker to call them, summon them, so that they can clarify the Speaker in what capacity were they going there and why did they create an impression that because they regard themselves as MPs and they don't regard themselves just as South Africans. Why did they create impression through that they were there to represent the institution of Parliament of the Republic?
And if, for example, just the last thing, if, for example, ANC members went to, not just to Israel or Palestine, but to any part in the world, right, again, on a fact-finding mission, let's say to find out about how just is the USA, for example, and they get introduced as an MP on their own steam, would that be a problem as well?
I will not. Let me make an example of myself. Next week, I'm going to Russia to represent the ANC. I can't arrive there in Russia and begin to say I'm there as an MP representing Parliament. As part of my credentials, if anybody reads my credentials to the audience, and that has been a speaker, I've been a premier, I've been this, I've been an MP, there's no problem with that. But I can't make a statement thereafter and say I'm speaking as an MP from South Africa when I'm supposed to be saying I'm here on behalf of the African National Congress in Russia. This is why I'm here. I even refer to the fact that I'm there creating an impression that I'm there representing the Parliament of South Africa. It's wrong.
Okay. Well, you are going to write to the Speaker. It's an issue we will certainly follow up, I'm sure, next week as well.
Yes, follow me up. Look at who is paying for my flights, everything, and so on. You will see. I can't conflate the two because as a member of Parliament, the conscience of me representing the people of South Africa must always be at the back of my mind and not compromise the Republic.
Let's leave it at that. That's Supra Mahumapelo. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very
Supra
much,
is the
Ashraf.
chairperson of the ANC Study Group on International Relations and Cooperation. What do you make of that in terms of what he said? Unfortunately, we don't have a person who actually went on that trip. They did not want to talk and were not available in some cases. And the DA that we wanted to speak to said no, they went in their private capacity, personal capacity, so there's no need for the DA to make a comment or statement on that issue. But it's not just the DA, it's the ACDP as well as, the ACDP as well as the Patriotic Alliance. But what do you make of it? Is it okay for them to go on a fact-finding trip in their personal capacities paid by whoever, as long as they don't call themselves MPs, or if they call themselves MPs in their personal capacity, is it a case of so what? There's a big ethical issue around this.
Last season's finalists, Masandawana, want to reach another final, but Amakosi believe their fans deserve a special ticket to the final.
This is the Nedbank Cup semi-final contest. Yona.
Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus Kaizer Chiefs on Sunday, 13 April, live streaming on SABC Plus and SABC One at 5:30 p.m. Then on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That's Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you, the issue of guns, Mother, I'll take your calls, not quite now, I'll take your calls just now, but you can comment on all the things we've discussed and more. To call in, it's 086 000 2032, whoever you are, even if you were one of those people who actually went on that trip. Go on, give us a call. WhatsApp, text, or voice note 0614 104 107, and you can post your comments on social media, text using the hashtag The National Pulse, tag SFM Radio, as well as myself, Ashraf Garda, on the Twitter or the X platform. Right, let's talk about guns now. Now, you know, gun-free South Africa has been very much at the center of gun control and effectively maybe a country, as the name suggests, a country free of guns, right? But they have another position now, specifically around not the public, that's one. Then you get the police service. and then you've got security companies. So the area that's out of that in the public would be the criminals, which is the public, but let's put them separately, right? Because that's not defense, that's another way around. Now, Claire Taylor is with us, research and policy analyst at Gun Free South Africa. Claire, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Good evening, Ashraf.
Thank you. Right now, you as your organization, you have a position regarding security companies and guns. Tell me about that.
Our response is in response to some draft regulations that were published by the Department of Police to amend regulations related to the private security industry. And Gun Free South Africa has overall welcomed them. This industry has been flying below the radar for far too long. It's 4 times bigger than our police, but it has very little accountability. And so we welcome the regulations, and we note as well that they're a draft. So they're an opportunity for the public to engage with them. And so you having this conversation is really important because it allows different stakeholders to contribute to the kind of private security industry we want in South Africa.
Okay, so in terms of the white paper that's been put forward, what are they suggesting regarding, regulations around security companies? And then let's see where you agree and disagree about it.
So I think firstly to just contextualize, I said earlier that the private security industry has really been flying below the radar.
Yeah.
And it's with regards to a number of issues, particularly around guns. So the first is, for example, and this is across South Africa, is that the Central Firearms Registry, the police unit responsible for keeping records of firearms, is completely dysfunctional. And the result of that is that the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority doesn't know how many private security companies own guns and how many guns they own and how many are lost. And so, for example, the draft amendments propose a range of registers and record keeping and notifications, including around gun numbers, gun losses, but also around gun discharge incidents where a private security guard has shot his or her gun and somebody has been injured, killed, or there's been damage to property. We absolutely support that. That's a way of improving accountability and traceability. So that would be one example. Another problem that is long-standing is around criminal infiltration of these companies. And so we've seen, for example, where private security companies have been implicated in, for example, taxi violence. There's a case now in the Western Cape High Court where an alleged gang leader set up private security companies in order to arm gangsters. And so we support just regulations around the tighter restrictions on firearms and who can own them. So, for example, there are proposed regulations to improve the fitness of guards who would be armed. Now, we may not necessarily agree with all of those suggestions, but in principle, the idea of raising the level of fitness of an armed guard, we would all support. I mean, another example is that we see private security companies acting like law enforcement agencies. And this is despite the fact that in our constitution, the police are mandated to monitor public order policing, to be involved in that. They're trained specifically, they have specific equipment, there's oversight mechanisms in place to ensure that they don't violate human rights in that process. And the regulations that have been, the draft regulations that have been published for comment aim to restrict the use of and the involvement of private security companies in public order policing. You know, again, these are things that Gun Free South Africa supports because it's a way of improving control over the private security
Well, I mean, look, in principle, I mean, you're right. And of course, you know, there's been a whole policing summit all week, right? So I'm not sure what's come out of that would sort of tickle your fancy, right? But the point that you made at the intro, where I think you said, you know, the private security industry is effectively like 4 times the number of the police service, could even be 5 according to some people. Either way, it's massive, right? So if you restrict their influence in the public sector, would you not also create the risk if the police service itself are unable to do their job?
Ashraf, I think that's a difficult question to answer without all the facts. But here are a couple of pieces of information. The first is that the private security industry has increased by 35% in the past 10 years. In that same period, murder rates have increased by 45%. Attempted murder rates have increased by 65%. Of course, the argument could be made that imagine how big they would have been if there wasn't a private security company, which then comes into another companies available. Here's another fact as well, is I've already indicated some examples of criminal elements involving themselves in the private security industry. But another factor is that on average, private security companies lose, through loss or theft, 5 to 6 guns every day in this country.
Sure.
Now, in some cases, that's because private security guards who are armed are targeted for their guns. Another is that we see, for example, in cash in transit heists. Now, these guards are armed with high caliber weapons. Whenever there is a successful cash in transit heist, the robbers not only steal the cash, they steal the guards' guns too. And so, and then, that obviously there's criminality as well. So that we've got numerous cases over the years where guards and security companies have been found guilty of selling guns and ammunition to criminals.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we also need to raise questions around the role that the industry plays in contributing to crime. And that, to me, seems to be the purpose of these regulations.
So contributing to crime as opposed to contributing to safety. That's such an interesting... That probably requires a one-hour conversation. Anyway, right? Just the last thing, very quickly, we're on to news time, right? We're on to news.
Yes.
If we're saying that the security industry is like 4 or 5 times bigger than the police force, do we have a similar example in any other country in the world that you can share?
So Brazil has got a fairly similar situation to South Africa, and they have some very interesting legislation that Gun Free South Africa is looking at as we draft our responses to these draft regulations.
Okay, and that conversation we'll have some other time. Claire Taylor, a research and policy analyst at Gun Free South Africa. But her point is so interesting. Whereas the obvious one is what role do security companies contribute to the safety of South Africa? But the flip side is to what role do the security companies intentionally, I should say, or unintentionally, intentional stroke unintentional, contribute to the higher levels of crime in our country. Another conversation, maybe on a Monday. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg Host.
Quick look at the headlines. The National Police Commissioner says the police service will introduce cameras to be worn by frontline officers. The CCMA has given the passenger rail agency 60 days to present a wage offer to workers, and Nigerian authorities have banned broadcasters from playing a song that criticises the performance of the country's president. More on that story and other news at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound and four-ways queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive and Sefako Makhato Drive westbound in Pretoria is where bus crashes reported at Dr. Swanepoel Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary truck before Cliffdale exit and the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound has a stationary truck on Monte Vista off-ramp and the M5 southbound a stationary vehicle before Racecourse Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Chumi with her cricket top wants to talk cricket.
Well, cricket's return to the Olympic Games in Los Angeles 2028 will be a 6-team T20 tournament for both genders. Participating teams will be able to field squads of up to 15 players after the IOC allocated quotas of 90 athletes per gender for the event. Now, the IOC is yet to reveal how teams will qualify for LA 2028, but it's understood that organizers are keen to utilize cricket as a way to increase India's interest in the Olympics. And it brings me to the question, I wonder why India is not that interested in the Olympics. I was reading an article, I think they have around 6 to 8 medals from the Olympics since 1900s.
Okay.
So I'm assuming this is the best way to just attract them
well,
to the
I
Olympics.
think you get countries like that. I mean, Brazil is another example. It's a great football nation.
Yeah.
But beyond that?
They
So you'll get
gymnastics.
But nowhere near. I mean, gymnastics is Eastern European and Americans,
But
Eastern
they actually
European.
do well in the gymnastics.
Do they?
The most recent Olympics that I was watching, they were doing well there. Yeah, but I'd have to check.
So
how
you
many
do
medals.
get certain countries that have huge favors in one. So initially, traditionally,
Yeah.
hockey, the two biggest countries were India and Pakistan. And I think when they moved from grass hockey pitches to, what do they play now, AstroTurf or something?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that advantage went away. So you have that. But the interesting one, they're going to play cricket in the Olympic Games. That should be great.
We're looking
Yeah.
forward to it. Meanwhile, former England cricketer James Anderson has been awarded a knighthood. This is following his services to cricket, with the bowler recognised in Rishi Sunak's resignation honours list. He's one of the few fast bowlers to play in his 40s, and in February 2023 became the oldest player to top the ICC men's test bowling rankings. Now, Anderson holds the record for the most wickets taken by a fast bowler in test cricket with 704. Now, in football, South African coach Fatlu Davids has been named the best coach of the NBC Premier League for the month of March 2025. The Simba SC coach claims the honour after guiding the club to 2 victories. Meanwhile, Marumo Gallants are welcoming the underdog tag ahead of the clash against Orlando Pirates in the Nedbank Cup semi-final this weekend. Batlhabane Bandwa are the only team in the last 4 from outside Gauteng, with Mamelodi Sundowns and Kaizer Chiefs fighting for the other place in the final. Now, Gallants are one of the 4 teams who have beaten Pirates in the league so far this season and may fancy themselves against the Buccaneers yet again. Meanwhile, Pirates coach Jose Rivero says that the 2-0 loss to Bloemfontein best side in the league is all in the past as he targets his cup final number 6 in South Africa.
Nothing. It's a new story on Sunday. It's a knockout game. It's a game of consequences. It's only 2 possible results. The other games that we play are games with 3 possible results. So it affects the way that one team or the other will approach the game. This is a different story. It's the possibility to go to a final. So yeah, it requires a different way to look at the game from both teams. And we have a decent experience already in this type of competitions together, and again we're gonna try to recover as good as possible in a short space of time, to prepare the game as good as we can, and do our best in order to be in another final, whatever it takes.
Kickoff is on Sunday at 3 p.m. Then Kaizer Chiefs coach Nasruddin Nabi insists that the team feels no pressure as they prepare for this weekend's Nedbank Cup semi-final against Mamelodi Sundowns. It's the one chance that Chiefs have at winning silverware for the first time in 10 years.
You said for me there is pressure. If we lose this game, I can answer for you there is no pressure. Each game we play there is pressure inside, but for me I'm coming here, like I said before, and I repeat it for a process. The first years, if for the process, we are here to build our team. But when we try to build our team, when we get opportunity like this opportunity, we are in the semi-final and we can win trophy, we'll play it and we try to play. If we will win this trophy, because it's for the fans, for the board, it's one of, not dream, but we play to win always the trophy because we are in a big team, Kaizer Chiefs. So every season and every competition you play, you have to win this competition.
In the meantime, Mo Salah ended months of speculation over his future by signing a new 2-year contract with Premier League leaders Liverpool today. The 32-year-old scored 243 goals in 394 appearances for the Reds since joining from Roma back in 2017, making him the club's 3rd highest goal scorer of all time. In rugby, a huge opportunity on offer for the Bulls in Edinburgh tomorrow as Jake White's Chargers aim for a maiden semi-final spot in the EPCR Challenge Cup. As the last South African team in the European showpiece, all eyes will be on the Pretoria side to continue flying the South African flag high and keep the trophy in South Africa. This is after the Sharks made history when they won the title last season. The quarterfinal gets underway at 1:30 p.m. In motorsport, McLaren's Lando Norris was fastest in practice 1 of the Bahrain Grand Prix. He was 0.238 seconds ahead of Alpine's Pierre Gasly, with Lewis Lewis Hamilton of Ferrari, 0.596 seconds slower than Norris. Then in tennis, Carlos Alcaraz advanced into the Monte Carlo Masters semi-finals with a 4-6, 7-5 and 6-3 win against local favourite Arthur Fils. On that note, it is a wrap from
Not quite. I need to know what's your weekend plans as per normal.
My weekend plans is just to relax and watch sport.
So you're not working?
I'm not on the TV side of things this
All right.
weekend.
Okay.
You?
I am. I'm actually going. We're talking paddle. There's the launch of the South African Southern. I need to say Southern, like a COSAFA of paddle.
Nice.
The Southern African Paddle Federation. Blah blah blah. And there's a launch of that. And there's a whole lot of talks. I'm moderating some of the sessions in the afternoon.
Oh, nice.
But of course, I've been interested in the sport. So let's see how that grows. And because now they want to create regional blocks, so that's why I'll be there. The
Very
rest of it, I'll watch. That's the whole day tomorrow. Beyond whatever's left of the next day, probably watch sport and just relax. Unless my wife says, come on, let's go shopping. Which I told Bridget, if you want to look for me, I'm probably in Rosebank or Sandton City. That's where you'll find me. But
Naz,
anyway.
I think you need to have a chat with my husband.
Why?
Because
he doesn't go.
He doesn't like me shopping.
Okay. But he doesn't like you
He
shopping.
does come with me, but I always feel bad because I can see it in his face. It's torture.
The torture of shopping. And Phineas is all smiling away here. Anyway. All right, so that's your weekend. That's my weekend. I wonder what other people's plans they have for the weekend. Actually, you can WhatsApp us anyway and tell me what's your weekend plans.
With that said, ke nna Tumeng Kgapele, Modimo ke o.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV license rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, breezing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward, just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 Rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV license rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Markets, I gather, about to go to sleep while in South Africa, but maybe not if you're in the eastern parts, the western parts of the world. They still like early morning. Jimmy, what can you tell us today?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. I am pleased to report that we don't have to use fighting words on a Friday. Markets seem to have closed out the week in somewhat of decent territory. I think the suspension of those tariffs was much welcomed by the markets. If we look at Asian markets, we're a bit of a mixed bag still in terms of trading. The Nikkei was down almost 3%, whilst the Hong Kong Hang Seng was up about 1.4%. The ASX in Sydney was down, but the mainland China index was up about 0.4%. European markets equally as mixed. The DAX down 0.8%, the FTSE up 0.8%. US markets are currently in the red, with both markets down about 0.2%. Our own local markets had a good day, largely spurred on by resources gaining 4%. That was as a result of the gold price, which we'll get to in a second. Financials were down, though, 1.2%. Industrials down 0.4%. The all-share finished the day up 0.4%, with the top 40 finishing the day up 0.45% or so. When we look at commodity prices, as I said, the gold price is the big driving factor. They're hitting all-time highs again today. We're above $3,200 a fine ounce now. We're at $3,240 odd a fine ounce. The price of Brent crude, $88.48 odd a barrel. Platinum and palladium still below $1,000 a fine ounce, but palladium is back above $900 an ounce at 906 odd. If we look at the currencies, the rand deciding to come fighting back towards the end of the week, especially today, gaining about 1% or more than 1% against all of the major currencies, including the Australian dollar. So back below 12 rand against the Australian dollar at 11.94, at about 21 rand 70 against the euro, and 1 British pound is exactly 25 rand. 1 US dollar is 19 rand and 15 cents. At some point this week, we were at 19 rand 93. So the previous worst scenario or previous worst performance we'd seen against the US dollar was at around 1992. So I think we topped that out earlier this week at 1993, but we did not breach 20 rand. So we'll go into the weekend with some positivity, hoping that next week we don't have a continuation of the volatility that we saw this week. We know that the escalating tensions between China and the U.S. could go in any direction, and we also know that we have been getting very confusing signals out of White House and the United States around what it is that they want to achieve with these tariffs that they're implementing. So we go into the weekend a lot more positive than we did last weekend, still very, very far from being out of the woods, but hopeful that there will be sanity that continues to prevail. Next week, we kind of go into the middle of the month, but still start of the second quarter of the year. We'll start to see some inflation numbers and the like start to come out of the United States and other areas. And we'll keep an eye on how the data is going to influence the markets. If anything, I think for the last weeks, a lot of the conversations have been tariff-focused, and it might be nice to kind of get a bit of a breather from that, from a market's perspective. It might start to give a lot more calm to the market. Quick look at Bitcoin before I go. $82,000 odd a Bitcoin. With the weakening rand there, we're still above 1.5 million rand on a Bitcoin there. So we'll keep an eye on this going into next week. We haven't hit 1.6 million on a Bitcoin. We'll see if next week we have some good news in the cryptocurrency space, or even if we have some better news on the local front. I think we are looking forward to just some sense of normal. We take the win going into the weekend, and we'll come back next week. Back to you, Ashraf.
All right, and your weekend starts now, Jimmy. Goodbye. We will chat again on Monday. Absolutely. Right, let's get to further comments from you on any of the issues we've raised. We spoke about the trip to Israel with South African MPs, 9 of them. That's fine. You can talk about the issue of gun-free South Africa and the regulation of security companies. And in fact, it may mean limiting the use of guns. You think that's a good thing. The issue of food security we touched on earlier on. It's a big issue in higher education. We're talking about campuses, learners coming, students getting to campus, but then have no money for food. It is a big deal. And then the developments in Zimbabwe around compensation for white farmers who had their land confiscated, got that right, around 2001 or so. But there's also more. The KZN traffic issues in terms of their plans for ahead of the Easter weekend. And the conversation I had earlier on with a grouping that felt that in terms of whatever they plan for the borders, in terms of border sophistication, it's not enough. Even more must be done to protect South Africa against foreign influx of foreigners in our country. Okay, let's get your thoughts after this.
TS Galaxy Queens have a special game plan to display a stellar performance to collect maximum points in their own backyard. However, Royal AM want to demonstrate their royalty with a win away from home. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Don't miss out on TS Galaxy Queens versus Royal AM Ladies the Saturday 12th April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Weekend View with Bongiwe Zwane from 6 to 7 a.m.
Has the Democratic Alliance become an unwelcome GNU guest? That is the subject of our Sunday morning discussion. Tabira in Sekhukhune.
I totally disagree with what Professor Mayer say and Professor Gumede say, to say that the minister has performed well.
And some are saying that maybe you need more money to get a properly skilled prosecutor. Is that where the problem is? And is the NDPP, in your view, someone that can still continue to run this institution?
One, money cannot be the problem where there are challenges that can be resolved without money. There are about 6 senior positions in the NPA that are not filled, and those positions are funded. There is money for those.
Let us be frank and honest about the NPA. The NPA has lost its credibility on many fronts.
Hashtag SAFM Weekend View. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we often ask what is it that moves the national pulse, or what moves the national pulse for you today? Eunice in Joburg, go for it.
Yeah, well, Ashraf, may I start off by asking, what do Matata Tsedu, Tim Modise, Udo Karelse, and the late John Kwelane have in common? All of them refused to take these free holidays, go to Israel on a specific one-dimension tour. Now, this is exactly what it was. When you talk of fact-finding, you go to see two sides of the story, unbiased, interview people on both sides of the situation there, come back and make up your own mind. Clearly, this trip was funded by the Friends of Israel. And by the way, Rabbi Goldstein, Warren Goldstein, was part of this tour. So, coming back and then saying, Friends of Israel have already issued out a statement that the group that went saw no signs of apartheid there. Now, clearly, we forget Gaza, where there's a genocide going on. The West Bank is near Jerusalem. Tulkarem, Jenin, they've been flattened. Water, electricity have been cut off. I will bet my last rand they never set their foot there. So what I'm saying is taking people, it happened during the apartheid era, where people came from overseas that was pro-apartheid. People came here and were taken to specific areas.
Fair enough. I mean, if you go to Sandton and you think Sandton, South Africa, and you say that's wonderful, and you don't see Alex across the highway, you think you're in another world completely. So your point is taken. What then from your side? Now, Eunice, I mean, I understand the motivation of the Friends of Israel, but what do you think? Why would the MPs take up the offer?
Well, depending, like Supra said earlier on, that you can see that already the positions on Israel have been clear-cut. For example, on that trip, now, this is what is going to be taken up, it should be taken up in Parliament. One of the DA members that went there, Nicholas Mayberg, he's on the Standing Committee of Intelligence. Now, that's a very, very sensitive position there. Now, for this person to go on this trip, on a specific trip, and then meet Israeli ministers there, I mean, what information has been sharing? This is a very, very sensitive position. What's her name? The lady from the Powell, from the DA's Foreign Affairs. I mean, clearly you could see when the ANC took the position on the ICJ case, she was very anti it. So, we're not going to, the old saying, Ashraf, you can fool some of the people some of the time. You ain't going to fool all the people all of the time.
All right, got that. You certainly have made your point, and I welcome other opinions on that, whichever way, yay for Eunice or nay for Eunice, whichever. I want to hear you, right? Anonymous, go for it. Hello. Okay, we'll get to Anonymous in just a second. Right, there's been other comments about the ANC too.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Emmanuel Mdorin Devon. I think ANC is bullying other political parties if is questioning their trip to Israel. The political parties got their own foreign policies, not the same as the ANC. So I don't think it is necessary for the ANC to question the trip of other ministers to Israel. Thank you.
All right, got that. I wonder whether others would agree with that. Just keeping in mind the point made earlier that these MPs supposedly went on their own, personal trips, but they were then introduced as MPs, that means representing South Africa. That's really what it is.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is quite weird and bizarre what the president of Zimbabwe is doing. Instead of, plowing the land and buying machinery and developing the nation, instead of giving back the land to the people who stole it in the first place. It's very weird. Does it make sense? Yeah.
Okay. Well, if it's weird, they believe it's illegal. That's why they've just corrected it wrong. I wonder if you agree. Well, you don't. Anonymous, go for it.
Hi, Ashraf Medley.
Thank you.
I just want to comment on the regulation of the security companies and the gun control in South Africa.
Right, I'm glad you called.
Yes. The first thing is that we have more guns, illegal guns in the hands of criminals than we have in the hands of the security companies. Fortunately, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a place that was dominated by taxi violence and killing from the illegal firearms, where the security companies were involved. So in that sector, they need to control that, especially when it comes to taxi violences and the guards that guard taxi range. But when it comes to your unresponse, house guarding and everything, the private security companies, they do a better job than police. Whenever I have a break-in my house, I don't call the police. I call the private security company. And when you call the police, they tell you that there's no when. They get there after 3 hours. But the security company, they respond within 10 minutes.
Well, I think you're right, Anonymous. That's why, the point made that they're 4 times bigger than the South African police service. And the primary reason is if you get a top-notch police service, why would you need a security company? I mean, you think I really want to pay what I pay every month? No ways do I. The same with medical cover, right? I would like to go to a state hospital. We do that because we don't trust it. That's really what it is. Thanks for that. There's more comment on that on the Israel trip.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf Mafuta. Ashraf, the trip by these opposition party or parliamentarians is an insubordination of the national policy. How can they do that whilst the national government has got a separate or different policy? One, the other thing, Kenny Kunene doesn't know who that mission met on the side of the Palestinians, that is the Hamas. Kenny Kunene doesn't know who paid for that trip. What does that reflect, Ashraf? I think this is the result of what the ANC did, that getting into a coalition with people who are not, who doesn't have the interest of this country at heart, Ashraf.
Well, I must say, I was also surprised that, look, either he knew, but he wasn't telling. No idea who funded it.
Incidentally, I'm one of those people that stay in Gqeberha, and I'll call it GQ. Grew up here, left, and came back about 6 months ago. And being back, I can sort of suss out a person's politics if they use the word Port Elizabeth or if they use GQ, and then I can sort of suss out what their politics are like. That's just a funny thought. It's not really being sincere. Cheers. Bye.
Okay. There we are. So Gqeberha or GQ, not even GB, GQ, right? And that will determine what their politics are. Fascinating.
Good afternoon. My name is Clifford from Limpopo. Yeah, it's quite difficult when the city or the area change their name. You'll find, even though you want to send a location to someone, it can be difficult to locate the place. So, yeah, it's much difficult.
That is so interesting, and you're right. I mean, unless it's a Google name change, you may struggle, isn't it? Well, what about this? The name. How is the Palestine-Israel reflected globally? I wonder.
I can even join PA for that stance on that on the war. I can support PA for standing with Israel.
Okay, there's one in support of Israel with supporting Kenny Kunene and the PA.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf Matabore. Ashraf, Kenny Kunene is hiding something. I think the issue of why that trip and who sponsored the trip should be thoroughly investigated. And something must be done with it. Because I know if it was something that was done by ANC and those that are not liked, it would be everywhere in the news. People will be every now and then asking questions to individuals within ANC and those other parties that are not liked. Thank you, Ashraf.
Well, thank you for that contribution. I understand that, as you've heard, certainly from my conversation with Supra and others, there's a plan to ensure that the issue goes to Parliament for some sort of accountability.
on the fact-finding mission, I'm glad they went over. I mean, it's good to get a point of view which isn't tainted by Takia.
Got that. And here's another.
Good afternoon. Our town name used to be Mount Frey. Now it's called Kwapaka. And at first I was opposing the name change. But then I Googled who Frey is and his history of racism. And then the Kwapaka name reflects the people who live there, which is Amapacha. I like it. Roger from Eastern Cape.
Oh, Roger, I like it, as you would say. I said, you have a friend of mine. Whenever he talks, he says, I like it. I don't, but he does.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Food security is a serious issue in higher education. I'm telling you can go to Bloemfontein, Qwaqwa, and see how students are struggling. And what makes things worse is alcohol abuse by the students. Bafana Kumala and Memel.
I haven't heard from you for a long time. Bafana, I've been making notes here. Last one I can play, it's about the land.
Hi, Ashraf. I think Mr. Eddie Cross does not mention, or maybe you need to ask him, was there no constitutional amendment that regularizes the issue of the land that was taken from the farmers? Because we cannot remain holding on to the fact that it was unconstitutional. Is there no constitutional provision in the 2013 Constitution?
Okay. Obviously, he's gone. Thanks for that. We're going to leave it at that. Appreciate your comments, your feedback, and you can even now you can tag me on the X platform, Twitter, Ashraf Garda and SFM Radio. Use the hashtag The National Pulse if you wish to continue this conversation there off air. That's great, because I always say the National Pulse is not a 3-hour show. It's a state of mind that's 24/7, because whatever we talk about impacts the pulse of the nation. Thanks for joining us all week. You have a lekker weekend, and I think it should be Oliver Dixon time, because he takes over normally with a review of the week. Starts, well, not quite now. First things first, here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Cameras to be worn by police officers and a deadline for PRASA to present a wage offer. Good evening. The National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemola, says the police service will introduce cameras to be worn by frontline officers by the end of the year. He briefed the media on the outcomes of the recent National Policing Summit in Kempton Park, east of Johannesburg.
We are looking forward that this year we're going to roll out body cams. We won't be able to roll out, of course, the whole service.